You're listening to The Watchers, a show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey watch movies and TV about taking them back. I'm taking them all back. It's from the Goonies. I don't know if you know the Goonies by heart like I do.
I recognized it. It's been a minute, but I've definitely seen the Goonies upwards of 10 or 12 times in my life at least.
So you're more like on the like teen van timeline,
yes.
And I'm more on the like adult van timeline on Goonies.
Exactly.
Watches. There's an Andy in that movie, which I never refer to myself as on this podcast because I tried to outgrow that nickname, but as a young person,
yeah,
it meant a lot to have a girl Andy represented on screen.
That Goonies reference right off the top, man. I really, oh my God, I needed it. Goonies. Never Say Die.
Yeah, it felt really good.
It really did. And then it all went downhill.
We'll get to it,
yes.
Obviously, but how are you holding up?
Well, we didn't introduce ourselves. We should probably also do that.
Oh, you're so right.
Every week.
I'm Andrea, and you're heartbroken.
And I'm heartbroken. I'm Jodie, a lifelong Lauren Ambrose fan since, well, not lifelong, but since 6 Feet Under, one of my favorite shows of all time.
Before we get into all of that, though, before we get into the sad stuff,
let's talk about the good shit.
The good shit for people who don't make it to the end of the episode where we would normally tell you what's coming up in our next episode.
Yeah.
Just so they're not surprised at what's dropping in their feed on Wednesday. Jodie, tell them what's coming up.
Oh, no big deal. You know, we just interviewed Ashley Lyle, one of the creators of the show that we've been covering for a couple years. Just, no big deal. It's fine.
The co-creator of this show, Yellowjackets?
This one. The Jersey Tomato, Ashley Lyle.
Something we've always said.
So yeah, we had the immense privilege of spending some time chatting with Ashley. As folks can probably imagine, there was a lot of Jersey talk, obviously. But a lot of Yellowjackets.
There's actually I was going to say maybe more Yellowjackets talk than people are expecting from the two of us with Ashley Lyle, though. I feel like we really were able to get into it to some degree.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we got some fun behind the scenes things that I haven't seen anywhere else. We got some fun, ideas that never made the show, things like that. I really do think that there's a lot of Jersey in there because that's who we are, but there's also a lot of sort of casual stories from Ashley that I think haven't been told elsewhere because we started the conversation with sort of a playing field that's a little different than a normal interview. I don't want to pat ourselves on the back too much, but it's not about us. It's just the fact that three women from Jersey bullshitting on a podcast is a different vibe and is a bit more casual than an official interview with some outlet. So I think it's for the Yellowjackets heads, that are here that aren't Jersey folk, you'll hear us talk about some specific places and things, but you'll also get a lot of sort of her thoughts on things that didn't make it in the show, ideas, stuff like that. So I thought it was a really fun time.
Yeah, and really, we won't spoil anything, but so much of what we talked about really, I think, might be helpful for people who are struggling with connecting with certain things about the show right now, kind of having Ashley and Bart's, she spoke about both of their kind of perspectives a lot. And I think it's so interesting, and not just because we got to do it. I think it's a really cool interview. I'm so excited for people to hear it.
I feel like it's not like any other interview I've seen with her. And I'm not saying that to say we're so great. I'm just saying because we have neither of us are official media reporters. And so it just was a different vibe. And I really felt like she was hopefully comfortable with us. And I loved it. I loved her. I meant it when I said that she needs to be our third Central Jersey specific co-host. Ashley, if you do happen to hear this, I know she doesn't like to listen to interviews of herself, but if you do happen to hear this, the door is open. We have no Central Jersey representation, and I think you'd be perfect for it. So,
yeah. I would love to have her back in the off season at the very least. So
absolutely.
We talked about some of the earlier influences and less talked about influences and stuff in that episode. And so yeah, I think that's all we should say for now. We've got a lot of ground to cover, but yeah, tune in on Wednesday for that.
Coming soon.
So let's get back to to the Van of it all.
There has been, I knew this was coming. I mean, she has terminal cancer. Like, the only way that she doesn't die is by some magical supernatural intervention. And I don't want that, because I don't think that that's what the show is trying to do. It's too obvious.
It's too obvious. And the other thing is, we'll get into all of this, but whether you are team supernatural or team it's not supernatural, if Van dies or makes a miraculous recovery, that answers it.
Yeah, and I don't want that to be answered. And the show's not going to. That's like, and not their whole thesis for existence.
No. And I will say out at the gate, I'm also heartbroken. I'm not, I wouldn't pretend to be the Lauren Ambrose fan that you are, but I love Van, and I do love Lauren Ambrose, and it was really sad and it was really hard. But I kind of loved everything about this episode. And I think if you didn't, every week there are people who are like, I'm done with the show.
Yeah.
I think this episode really feels like the one where it's like, if you really get what the show is trying to do and you like what it's trying to do, this will be an episode for you. And if you don't, this is the episode where I think you might fully hop off.
And understandably, I'm always here to give the Reddit report, and the Reddit report is the citizen detectives are not happy right now.
How do you feel? Again, other than your heartbreak, your subjective heartbreak, how do you feel overall?
I feel like it's fitting that Van dies in a way that, like, they're trying to place, they, meaning the girls and themselves, are trying to place meaning on that really also has an element of randomness and cruelty to it, because of how Jackie died, because of Javi drowning. Like, when we get to the end in our little theory corner, I've been reading this sort of meta-analysis Reddit post that I fucking love. It's one of those, like, very literary criticism, film criticism takes that is probably not 100% on point for the whole thing, but it's a really interesting lens to look at it through, and I think it's how you and I both have been looking at it. And so I'll bring that up at the end, but it really connects to how I feel about Van dying. Like, I love Lauren Ambrose. The thing that makes me the saddest about it is just that we've lost 2 gay characters in one season. And that's a bummer. So,
as I've said, I say it kind of jokingly,
but everyone on the show is queer.
And that's barely an exaggeration.
I know.
Is that
it's
an
true.
exaggeration? Of our I guess Misty. Misty might be the only.
Misty's a freak, though.
Misty's a freak, but we have seen no indication that she's attracted to anybody other than men.
Right.
And so
I honestly would argue I don't know that she's even fully attracted to men.
To men, no.
I think she's...
Yeah, I'm not...
She's not connecting with normal human sexuality, I don't think.
Yeah, that's totally fair. But every other adult woman we have seen, and people will probably argue Shauna, but I think it's silly too at this point, between Jackie and Melissa.
Yeah.
But I think all of the adult women are queer, and so
basically, I mean,
they're queer women are going to die on this show.
Yeah, like I would have loved to see if Ty and Van could move beyond their trauma and like have an actual relationship. But that's a different
Ty's wife.
That too, yes. But that's a different show. That's not what this show is doing.
No, and we've kind of been saying all along this, or at least I have, like, these women, I mean, you too, that's not what I mean, but
no, I know.
Like, I often say, like, I don't know how this show ends other than everybody dead or in jail.
Yeah.
And none of this is really, I mean, how she died was a surprise in a way to me, but it's not a surprise to me that the women we love keep dying. So
right. No, absolutely. And like, I've seen in interviews with Liv Hewson talking about Mel, the character in the teen timeline, and some reference to Mel and Jen's relationship as being a little of that same like intimate friendship that Jackie and Shauna had.
Totally.
And so there's definitely a lot of that undercurrent there. So I don't know. I am sad because I love Lauren Ambrose. I am thrilled to have gotten a few scenes with Liv Hewson and Lauren Ambrose still like in this episode.
I know we're going to talk about it, but my God, they're
so
some of my favorite
good
stuff I've
together.
seen on this show.
They're so
Incredible.
amazing as a pair. And that is the biggest sadness for me, I think, is that we won't get the two of them interacting. I'm going to just go ahead and break your heart now. I watched an interview with Liv, and they were talking about how they and Lauren talked about this ending. And apparently Lauren said to Liv, "I'm giving her back to you."
Oh, my heart. Oh, no.
I know.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah, that
I love
interview.
them.
So Liv did an interview with Collider, but Liv, that's a really great interview. We should put it in the show notes because they talk so much about their relationship with adult Van and with Lauren, and the whole thing is just really like, it's so lovely to see them work together. Just seeing the two of them in the same room and the way that they portrayed two sides of the same person at different stages of life, like it was really beautiful. So anyway, that's how I'm feeling. I'm feeling sad, but I'm also feeling like we both have a way that we choose to watch this show, which is kind of, we're along for the ride. This is giving us so much of what we want from a show in so many ways that, like, I am not here to second guess the writer's decisions necessarily. Like, I can have feelings about it, but like, I just want to see what happens. So I guess we should start this week with the teen timeline, since so much of import happened in the present day. And the teen timeline is it moved things forward, but it was less, like, there were some really important buttons in there and moments, but it was less obviously shocking and eventful than the present.
Yes, I agree.
So we start off in the woods, kind of where we left off, with the Nat and Shauna standoff. They're arguing. I wrote down, they sound like little kids here. Like, they're like, I told them, and they're gonna, like, Shauna being a little brat about it. And
it is kind of funny as the stakes get higher, the way they sort of seem even younger. It becomes even more clear, the fact that these are just like young girls, especially with the adults there. It really does make a difference to me.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that with I keep calling him Joel McHale, with Cody and Hannah there to observe as more adult, certainly flawed adult characters, but characters that have been on this planet a bit longer.
Right.
Travis is saying, like, we've been in hell here. And Lottie sounds, every time Lottie brings up what quote unquote it wants, she sounds more insane. Like, every single time it's getting more, like, absurd, the way she says it. I think it's probably intentional, because it's like they're seeing it now as not this, like, spiritual way of getting through what they're going through, but now it's an impediment to them going home.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. We get a great line from Joel McHale here. Well, it sounds like you guys have a lot to discuss, so have fun braiding each other's hair and engaging in some light cannibalism. I'm fucking out of here.
I really love that he thought, like, with his hands tied, he's like, well, see ya.
So it's hard for me because I've spent a lot of time with Joel McHale over the years, not personally, but entertainment-wise, to think of him as this misogynistic character that he's playing. But he is playing, like, an alpha male, misogynistic, like, because it's Joel McHale, I keep seeing him, like we said last time, as, like, a community character. But
well, I mean, Winger is totally misogynistic, just in a less...
The facade is very flimsy with him.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
But this is, I think through and through, this guy is just like an alpha male asshole.
Yeah, and Winger just wants to be one.
Yeah,
so he's
exactly.
Posturing, but this
Winger
guy
Winger has feelings, though.
Yeah,
somewhere. So Shauna pulls the gun, and this is where he gets really misogynistic. He says, "You sure you even know how to use that, little girl?" Little girl.
I know. My boyfriend taught me is so funny, though.
It's so good. That's the perfect response.
Yeah.
I mean, they're making us really kind of see how psychotic Shauna is more and more. And like, taking us from season 1, where we had so much like love and sympathy for this character, to really seeing her as this like pretty broken evil person. But that line, I was like, yeah, yes, get it, Shauna.
I mean, Shauna's funny. Shauna's always
she
funny.
Is funny.
Like,
yes,
that's part of it. I just, in case there are any listeners who thought the same thing that I've been seeing a little bit of on the internet, if for some reason you did take that line to mean that Shauna had a boyfriend who taught her to shoot that we don't know about, or that she was like lying to Joel as opposed to being sarcastic,
being a sarcastic asshole.
I'm a cannibal butcher who lives in the woods. I didn't need anyone to teach me how to shoot this gun.
Yeah. No, 100%. Ty interrupts though, because this is getting out of hand, and says we can take them to the animal pen in the meantime. There's a vacancy. Coach Ben is gone, so there's some space. Boy. Some room at the inn for Hannah and Cody.
Yeah. Take their shoes.
Yikes.
At least they didn't. Oh, but I mean, they could have slit 4 Achilles tendons. So they didn't do that at least.
You're right. Yeah, the shoes is a kinder, gentler way of doing that, I guess. Mm-hmm. We get a little conversation between...
You could have just taken my shoe?
Taken the shoes.
Oh, Jodie.
No, his shoe. His one shoe. Yeah, his one shoe. Yeah, poor Ben. We get a brief conversation between Van and Ty after this, where Van kind of chases her down. And Ty is fully in this, we cannot go back without cleaning this up. We have to, and it's hard for me to say whether that really is her motivation for staying, is like, I cannot let the real world kind of find out about this, but it's feeling more and more like it actually is the reason. Ty is so concerned with that.
Exactly. And I don't think other Ty maybe, but other Ty doesn't have as strong a hold yet. I don't think Ty is having a good time out here the way that like Shauna and Lottie and those people are. Yeah. Ty is so concerned with image.
Absolutely. So concerned. And like we see that laced throughout the entire thing, through all 3 seasons.
I mean, the fact that Ty is the one who kind of set a lot of this into motion in the first place by hiring Jessica Roberts to see if anybody would tell their story. Yeah. It's not surprising that it started back here.
Well, and the very first time we meet Ty in the very first season, and I think in the pilot, she's being photographed with her wife and child for Jersey Monthly. Like the first time we see Italian her, Vogue. No, it's not Italian Vogue. The first time we see her, she is projecting an image for a camera. And so this is actually a big concern of hers.
I rewatched, I know we have so much to cover, but I rewatched the pilot. I think you did too, before our conversation with Ashley. And that scene, I know we've talked about it before, but it seems so obvious to me how much of other Ty was poking through even early on.
Oh,
because she turns on that sort of like flirtiness with Simone. That is, she cares about her wife. I don't think she doesn't, but it feels like the kind of slick other Ty, like her, smoothing things over with Van when they're at that restaurant and making them sneak out. Do you know what I mean? Like she just knows. Yeah. And she gives a smile that is so other Ty in that scene.
Yeah. Oh, it's been there the whole time. I mean, like I noted in the teen timeline, the same thing where before we even get a sense of what's about to happen with Allie, I don't remember who she's talking to, but Ty is looking in the mirror and she says something about how she'll take care of it or it's not going to be a problem or something. And it's so like, whether or not like what we think of as quote unquote real Ty knows what's about to happen, like part of her does. Part of her is like, I'm taking care of this right now.
Exactly. So, yeah. And the fact that you're so right. She's in the locker room talking into the mirror at that point. So you have the double Freud. You have the double there is.
Yep.
So telling.
I mean, you think if you've watched this pilot enough times, there wouldn't be anything new to see. But every time I watch a new episode in the new season and then I go back, I'm like, oh, that's where that came from. So
exactly. It's so cool.
But in this conversation, though, Van is not up for this interpretation of the best way to do this. They're talking about winter. She says, we saw this like in one of the first looks of the season. She says, try to remember what winter was like. And Ty's like, we survived. And Van says, we ate a fucking kid.
Yeah.
But the conversation continues, though, and they get specific. So Van says, the game's going to run out eventually. We know what's going to happen. And then we get the line from Ty. Good thing you've been practicing with the cards.
Practicing with the cards. Yeah.
So we suspected, like, back in season 2, I think, or when Mari was like doing chores with the cards, that she was like kind of fixing the cards so that like people she didn't like would get the stupid chores, like the shit bucket and all of that.
Right.
But this is a lot more serious. Van's face is really interesting here because she looks almost like she's been caught when Ty says that, even though obviously this is something that she and Ty know about. But there's like a look of panic and guilt on her face that is super interesting. I think that to me it read as like they had been practicing with the cards, or but not thinking it would be that they would still have to be doing this, you know? So we go to wilderness man Travis, who has woken up from his laying around in a hammock high on mushrooms and is
totally
creating a pit trap now. I wrote, nice job, Travis. He's being very precise.
Yeah, but it's interesting that he's the one to make the pit. It wouldn't have occurred to me. If I had to guess like whose idea it was, it wouldn't have been his.
I know. I think this whole interaction with the new people, quote unquote, has affected everybody in very significant and different ways. Like, I think with Nat, it's really made her have this feeling of like extreme urgency now that there's a possibility of getting out. It's, I think, done something very similar with Travis, where he is really literally broken out of a stupor and is like, oh my God, wait, there's a possibility here. Let me the fuck out of this place. Because we don't think of Travis as one of the people that is capable of violence in this world. Like, he has never been the perpetrator of direct violence for any reason. And so the idea that he's setting up a pit trap and he's going to lure Lottie out there is...
I know.
That's how serious this has become for him in like the span of, you know, a couple of days, realizing that he could get out. He tests that pit with the log. It collapses and we see all the spikes in there. Pretty intense.
Well, it's near the tents. It's not in the tents.
Oh my God.
I'll clap for myself.
So during this, Shauna is patrolling like a prison guard. And I wrote the red shirts are tying up Joel and Hannah because I still don't know. I think it's Britt and someone, Robin, maybe. They've still not said any words.
I think that's right.
Yeah, Robin is always pulling a face in the background, which I appreciate. Got to make the most of the screen time you get.
I feel like Jen and Melissa did the same in their early days, and they got pulled up to main cast. So
yeah, you gotta put the effort in when you can, you know. I mean, that's why we have Van at all, is mostly the fact that she went back to the keg for some beer before getting pulled into the woods to talk to the team. So
that's a really good point.
Yeah. The interview that I mentioned earlier with Liv talks about a little bit about the way that they'll occasionally improvise in a scene and how the people running the show will sometimes actually love that and use a piece of it in the episode.
I love that.
Yeah. So Shauna and Joel McHale / Cody make extended hostile eye contact, is what I refer to it as. And he spits while staring at her. This man will kill all of them to get out of there.
Oh, he absolutely would. Yeah. It's funny. I said before, and I still kind of stand by it, that when it was just him and Akila and Travis, I didn't think his first decision would be to kill 2 teenagers. No, I don't either. If it came down to it, he'll do what he has to do.
The interview that I read specifically with Joel McHale says the way he was thinking about it was, he says, I think he would have helped them out as long as it was helping him. I think he would have taken as many allies with him as he could, and it was his way to get out. It didn't work out, but he would have kept anyone around who was useful to him to get him out. So it was more about like, these people were maybe weren't in my way, now they are. And so
he's a survivalist, not necessarily a murderer. And so if to survive you have to kill, so be it. Oh well.
Yeah. So yeah, he stares at her and spits on the ground. They have this like standoff for a moment. And then Shauna starts hearing whispering. And Akila, Mari, I mean, we're definitely seeing the split now, right? Like Akila, Mari, Nat, and Jen are talking. Shauna's trying to hear what they're saying, but we just hear whispering. And then so she goes to meet with Misty, Ty, Van, and Mel. And we're seeing this like divide really like visibly happening. She says they're up to something. The others. The others.
You know, like Lost.
It's the others. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's the others and that's fun. And of course, that was my first thought. But it also is like, it's not everybody. You know, like Lost was very live together, die alone. And we see what happens on that show when people split up. And now we're really seeing it here, which is something we've speculated how these lines would be drawn.
Totally.
And now, like you said, we're really seeing it.
But I think what's interesting is Misty's role in all of this, because she falls in naturally with the Shauna group, but we see later that she and Nat obviously have this connection. Yeah. And she seems a little bit like she could fall on either side. And so it's interesting, the self-awareness that when she says, everyone knows you kicked me out of the meetings because you think I'm annoying, but what if we use that? Like, she is very self-aware. Like, we think of young Misty as a little bit clueless, but I don't think she is. She knows what they think of her.
No,
exactly.
And we've talked about it because we see it in the adult timeline because, like, for example, she talks so much about how her and Nat are best friends and blah, 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 but she knew she'd have to cut
the brakes.
Nat's wires. The
it's
wires
the brakes,
to go. Yeah. You're starting to sound like Shauna.
I know.
To go on that little road trip with her. So Misty, you know, she ignores it a lot of the time, but she knows what
she's
her
not
role
oblivious
is
to
in
it.
This group. Exactly.
Yeah. Van calls her Double O Quigley, which I love.
Yeah.
It's like the Irish
Double O Quigley.
Yeah.
007.
Exactly. It's the Irish
really
James
good,
Bond.
Jodie.
Yeah, it's really good. But so they decide that she's going to kind of try to infiltrate and see what's happening. We get Travis talking to Lottie and pretending that he's
007 drinks Guinness, and he also likes it shaken, which doesn't make any sense because you shouldn't shake Guinness. But
you mean Double O Quigley?
Or 007, the Irish James Bond.
Oh, 007. Got it.
07.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, Double O Quigley likes a chocolate martini with chocolate shavings. Yeah.
So important to include the shavings.
Yes. So Travis is pretending to Lottie that he had an experience in the woods that he wants her to verify, ?
Of course it works.
Yeah, of course it works. And this is where I start to feel bad for Lottie, and I shouldn't because
always. Yeah.
But no, she is a true believer in all of this. This is, like you've said before, this is not a manipulation. She really feels like she's trying to help them by having this communication.
And it comes from such a deep, because I said last week or the week before when she said, like, I won't be me, whatever's out here. And I was like, you can't take your real fear for your life and make it a problem for everybody else.
Yeah.
But it's a defense mechanism that she's not aware of. Lottie's not lying. She's wrong, but she's not lying when she says that stuff.
No, not at all.
And she's desperate for it. So
yeah. He says he thinks that it was trying to talk to her, and says, like, will you come with me and see if I'm right? So of course she says yes, and they go off in their almost matching flannel. And then so Mari and Nat and Jen and Akila are talking, and then Nat says, we just have to wait. Mari says, I can't get through another winter out here. And I wrote, oh no, Mari.
I know.
Please say yes, you can.
Yeah, you might not. You might not, girl.
I know. All the signs point to no, but... And then Akila says, if we are here, I hope the wilderness chooses me first. And I said, Akila, stop speaking things into existence. I love Akila.
No.
I will say that my affection for Mari is I would be sad if either of them died, but Akila feels like an innocent that will die. I almost said should die. But all the innocents are dying. Like, all the people that have any humanity left are not making it. So Akila's goodness is going to be the problem.
Yeah. And I think Mari, it's funny, but in a way is more on the innocent side of the spectrum still compared to what other people have done. I think Akila is maybe the last, like, well, she's, but the last like true pure soul so far. But
yeah, well, because with Mari, I feel like she is more, and I don't remember if we've even said this, I think we might have, but she's more the Jackie villain versus the Shauna villain. Like, totally, she's a dick.
Yeah,
she's kind of an asshole. Well, she might, like, try to beat you up, but she's not gonna cold-bloodedly, like, murder you.
It's so, you kind of see everything in some ways it feels like you see everything you need in the pilot, because her first real line in the show is when Akila goes to sit and she's like, oh, JV, don't you know you have to earn a seat? And then she's like, I'm totally fucking with you, and offers her some fruit by the foot.
Yes. Yes.
And it's like,
she's got miles of it.
She's got, yeah. And it's like, it's that she's like acting like an asshole, but she still offers the fruit by the foot and says she's kidding.
Yeah,
she's
bravado,
taking people out of the exactly.
Yeah, and she really just wants cheeseburgers, and I relate. I don't want a cheeseburger, but I would really want some fries and a milkshake.
Yeah.
Jen says we can steal the gun back, and I wrote, she speaks. We actually got a couple lines from Jen in this episode.
Yeah,
and then they're talking about whether or not Shauna would actually use the gun, which is something that we get a payoff for really quickly. Mari says she's too chicken shit, but Nat doesn't agree. And they look, and she's ominously carving something with her knife by the fire as she does.
So funny whenever they cut to her brooding somewhere with a knife. It makes me laugh every time.
Yep. Yeah. So Misty is going to try to put her plan into place, right? She's getting water and she sees the others talking. So she's trying to be a double agent. Since her whole purpose here is to kind of plant a seed that there's a plan they don't know about. She says, well, we need something about making more food so we're covered. And they're like, for what? And she says, oh, I thought you guys were part of the plan. And so they're trying to, like, resist her trap or whatever. Mari says, we saw you in that meeting with Team Crazy. Quit embarrassing yourself. But of course, when she walks away, they're like, wait, is there something we don't know? Because, like, they're paranoid. They've been in the woods for a year, and, like, everybody's acting nuts. They just saw Lottie, who had never really behaved violently before, put an axe in the back of someone's head. So who knows what's real?
Exactly.
But then Misty sees Van walking away with a backpack, and of course follows her, budding citizen detective that she is. And she sees her with the radio, or the phone, from the tent.
Right, the sat phone.
Yeah, the sat phone. And she sees her, like, kind of stashing it by a tree and also trying to fix the broken antenna with wires that she pulled from the plane. I
texted you, I meant to say this last week. There's a quick shot in the opening credits of Misty holding the beat up transponder, and I realized, like, that just feels like Chekhov's transponder that we haven't done anything with, and that it would obviously play a role in repairing the sat phone. And so they are reminding us, or they're not reminding us yet, and so, with the phone coming up and all, I think it's
and the creators have talked about Alive, the Uruguayan rugby team that crashed. And in that real story, like, one of the things they tried was taking the radio from the plane and going up to a high point to try to use it to contact help. And I feel like we're heading in that direction here too. That didn't work in that case.
Same thing happened in Lost, and that's when you learn about the numbers being repeated over and over again. So that going to a high location with a radio is something that is real life reference and story reference from pop culture. And the thing that ends up getting the people from Alive rescued, of course, is two of them hiking way out and basically finding another person to send back help. So put a pin in that one. Misty had a realization in this moment watching Nat, and I didn't quite get what was happening yet because, again, my TV was very dark. And so I wasn't sure what
Nat was holding it first. I was a little bit confused, and I wrote, Misty better not smash another piece of equipment. But then I figured out what was actually happening.
Yeah.
Hannah is playing hangman with Mel in the livestock pen, which is ominous. Mel is bored and annoyed by the whole thing. So Hannah jokes, want me to turn on the TV. And I feel like what I felt in this moment was like Mel desperately needing like a kindly, like big sister, aunt, mom vibe, and Hannah clocking that and being absolutely willing to provide it.
I think we learn a lot about Hannah and what could happen with her over the next, well, I guess maybe just the next one episode.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Melissa says, I would literally get shot again to watch The Real World. Which, like,
what season would that have been?
I think they're in Boston. I think it's the Boston season.
Perfect. Great season to not get to watch.
But so the first time I watched this, I was like, kind of just following along. And then the second time I noted, Hannah says it's mostly Nickelodeon on at home these days. She's lying.
She's fully lying.
Because her child was adopted.
Yeah, and it's not that like her child was adopted after Hannah died, that like she got adopted out. I totally think
Hannah was a teen mom. Yeah.
Hannah totally clocked what you said she clocked and has realized that she needs these girls to think of her as a mother.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially like kind of playing into the ones she can play into and then responding to the others in the way that she thinks they need to be responded to, which we will definitely get to. She then says like, you know, she talks about her daughter and says, you've been missing your families for over a year. Like the second time I watched this, I was like, oh, I see what she's doing. Joel is just clearly sitting in the pen listening to all of this. And you can tell Mel's getting some sympathy for her. And then Hannah says, they can't keep us tied up here forever, can they? And Mel's response, people are willing to do some messed up stuff to see another day. And then Hannah pulls out, this is the most fascinating study of survival I've ever seen.
She's a real science freak.
Yes, even more so than horny frogs. And I appreciate Mel saying that teenage girls are even hornier, because teenage girls don't get enough credit for as horny as they get. Having been a teenage girl. Yeah. It's always the boys that they're talking about that with.
I know.
It's like, no, put a bunch of teenage girls in the woods together. And speaking of teenage girls and horniness, Shauna does not like her sidekick.
So funny.
Having fun with someone else.
Yeah. It's so funny that it's like, it's not just paranoia that people are planning things without her, like that Melissa and Hannah. It's like she doesn't like to see Melissa getting along with this older girl.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah. She says, am I interrupting something? Which is such a teen girl thing.
It's so good.
She storms off.
Even Shauna, you know?
Yeah. She storms off. Mel follows. And she asks, what were you two giggling about? Don't you know how dumb it is to get close to her? And Mel, to her credit, is like, do you think she makes a joke? And I'm like, you're hilarious. Here's your freedom. Like,
right.
She isn't that dumb.
No.
But again, Mel tells her that Hannah has a kid back home. And Shauna acts surprised by this later on in the present timeline, that there is a child. Shauna knew there was a child from the beginning. She may not have believed it right away, but...
And maybe Shauna, I want to be careful to not do, because we are such like cheerleaders of this show, I don't want to get to the point where I'm like totally excusing things that don't make sense. But it does sound like I wouldn't be surprised if Shauna heard this, decided she didn't believe her, that she was just, lying about, because she is lying about having a kid at home. She doesn't have a kid at home. And then having it confirmed later.
Right. The expression on Shauna's face as she's listening to the tape could be like shock at like, oh, it was actually real. She had a kid.
It was real. Yeah, exactly. I think that makes sense. I don't think that's us doing like mental gymnastics to fix a mistake. I think that is quite possible.
She says, this isn't a competition, Shauna. Have you met Shauna, Mel?
Yeah.
Everything is a competition. So Mel storms out because Shauna says, I didn't think you were this fucking stupid. And Shauna...
And Mel says, I'm going to file that away for the rest of my life.
Yep. But Shauna is so cruel here. Like, she lets it loose in front of everyone, and you see it on everyone's face. She says, "You think you're important? No one gave a shit about you until me." This is also so Heathers. And I wrote,
you're so right.
It's so Heathers. You were playing Barbies with Betty Finn. That's exactly what it is.
You were playing Barbies with Betty Finn. You're so right.
Yeah. But everyone's watching. And Mel is really hurt. She says, "Why can't you just be a nice person?"
I don't know why, but I loved that line.
Because it's so real.
And knowing what we know about Mel now is like, up until she got herself back involved with the Yellowjackets, like, it seems to me like Mel was living as if she were a nice person, even if deep down she's not. She could be act as if she were a nice person, and she wants Shauna to do the same.
Yeah, but man, you don't fuck with Shauna like this in public, because Shauna says you're nothing. And you can hear Van go, Jesus.
Jeez.
And Mel, I believe this in the present timeline too. She's not as scared for her safety around Shauna as she needs to be. But I do appreciate, cool. Yeah, I appreciate the balls of it all. She says she's fucking nuts. So Shauna pulls the gun on her because that's a natural response to being insulted, and says, "Say that again." And Mel turns around and says, "I fucking dare you."
I know.
Which I loved, and also is not a smart thing to do.
Not a smart thing to do, but man, does it make me like Mel.
I know. Hannah is watching with the biggest wide open eyes I've ever seen from her pen. And then Shauna smiles and shoots at Mel. And shoots her sleeve. Like, it's pretty clear she's like trying to scare the shit out of her, not actually kill her. And it's pretty close range.
Yeah, she doesn't scare the shit out of her, but she does scare the piss out of her. So
yes. And this moment, like, so Mel pees her pants, and Van comes over and covers her. And in that interview with Liv, they were talking about this. They were talking about how a little like behind the scenes conversations that Liv and Jenna, who plays Mel, have had about their characters, and how they're these two like baby butch lesbians in the wilderness that like one's a little older and a little more out, and how they probably do clock each other in a way that is separate from the group dynamics. And so that wasn't, I don't think, in the script, Van coming over and putting the coat in front of her. It was something that they decided. So sweet. I know.
I love that.
Me too.
There's a lot in this scene too, because it's like, I'm always struck when we see where the lines are. Like, these are girls who have eaten a kid. They've eaten a few people now. They've all done some pretty heinous stuff, some more heinous than others. But this act of just like emotional cruelty, when everybody knows that Mel has been following Shauna around like a puppy dog, this is the thing where everybody's like, this is one of the things where everybody's like, everybody's really struck by it, I think.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I think it would be nice to see more actually of their sort of outside world identities kind of coming into play, because it would in real life. Like back in season 1 or 2, when we finally see like Akila and Ty hanging out, like,
right.
One of the things that I've seen, I think Jasmine say about the show is like, they would imagine that there would be a kind of a natural bond there, like right. And I think that that's true of the two baby butches as well. Using Liv's words, not my own. But right. So Mel's crying, Shauna smiles, of course she does. And we go to Lottie and Travis in the woods. And he's like kind of crying. I can't tell if it's real or not, but she says, "Tell me I can help." He says,
I took it as it was real, but Lottie doesn't realize what he's crying about, because he's
guilt.
Planning to do because he doesn't, again, you just said, he's not a murderer the way the other ones are. Like, this is a real act of desperation on his part.
Absolutely. She says, "Tell me I can help." He says, "No, Lottie, you can't." And then when I thought he was going to continue the charade, he just breaks it all down. He says, "It's bullshit. You're bullshit. Like, you're ruining it. I can't let you do this." And again, I'm feeling sorry for Lottie, because she's so sincere. She looks at him and says, "I'm sorry, Travis." And she looks sorry. I just wanted you to see that he's here, that Javi's with us.
Mm-hmm.
And to her, that's real.
Right. Yeah, I think so.
And so, of course, the show's playing with us because they don't want us to come down in one direction or another. So the wind starts whistling. Mm-hmm. Travis looks up, starts tearing up a little. She starts to walk towards the pit, and he watches, and it holds her.
Right.
The stick cracks. She turns around, looks at him, and walks back. And this is why he believes.
Mm-hmm.
Because every time he is like, this is ridiculous, this is bullshit, something will happen that he can't quite explain.
Right.
And he seems to kind of fall back into it a little bit.
People are really taking it seems like a lot of people are really taking this scene, which every few episodes there's a scene that people are taking as the scene that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's supernatural. Mm-hmm. But I still don't, I don't want to say too much, but I just don't think this is a show. And some people hate that. And I just think maybe this just isn't going to be the show for you. And I'm so sorry for 3 seasons in. And if the show is going to be ruined for you, if they never come down on either side, like, I think that's some peace you need to make with your God now, because I don't think we're ever going to get.
Yeah.
There are a few scenes in this series that if you want them to be supernatural, it is much easier to read as supernatural. This is obviously one of them. But it's also like, he's a kid. He tested it with a log that he chucked.
Right into the center.
Lottie, right into the center. Lottie doesn't make it that far. She's not running.
No. And we talked about this with Ashley, not to promote our upcoming interview with show creator Ashley Lyle, but we talked about this with her and about how every scene like this, they try on purpose to make it so that there's an answer one way or the other, like that either one could be true in every single possible, and that some it's harder to do that with than others, right? But that the goal is not for it to be, oh, this is the definitive answer one way or the other.
Exactly.
Also, light as a feather fucking works, so maybe it's just distribution of weight. You know, maybe she knows how to like distribute her weight when she's walking in a way that doesn't trigger the trap.
I mean, like, maybe these women are just have gotten used to walking light of foot in the woods because they're often tracking. I just don't think it didn't even really strike me as like anything
huge deal.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a look on her face that could be taken as Lottie in her little mind palace, or Lottie recognizing that something was different and turning around and walking back.
Exactly.
So the next thing we see is Mari is taking Hannah to pee in the woods. I appreciate the fact that they recognize that people have to go to the bathroom in this show. There's a lot of this going to the bathroom in different places.
That's a good point.
But she's leading her to Nat because they're trying to get her to help them get out.
The way Nat comes running in with that knife out is so funny.
It's very like, Scooby-Doo.
It's not how I would approach the scene, but, you know.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I wondered in this moment if Hannah is pretending to be scared, but I think she actually is scared. Like, she doesn't know what the fuck's going on. She's reacting in the moment.
I think so.
So Nat gives her the knife and says, tonight when everyone is sleeping, cut yourself and Cody free. We're going to make a run for it. And so this is the plan that they've been hatching. Which isn't a bad one. They just don't execute it well.
Yeah, and you know it can't work out just based on where the show goes. But my heart from this point on just started racing for the rest of the episode. Like, I was so curious at what point it was going to break down, if there was a chance that they were going to get out, and that there was going to be some of the winter of them kind of hiding from and trying to get further away from the other side or what. But yeah.
Well, the thing that they didn't do, which they should have done, was have Mel talk to Mel ahead of time and have her stay in the hut with Shauna so they could know for a fact she was asleep. You've got to know she's out before you pull this.
Yeah. Again, it's hard because they are young girls and they've never had to do this specific thing before, but they are from Jersey. And I just think you should be able to
scheme better.
But what can you do?
But instead of sleeping,
they got a lot going on.
Yes. Instead of sleeping, Shauna is playing with the lock of hair like it's a snake in her hands, like an evil fucking sorceress.
So funny.
It is ridiculous.
so villainous.
Yeah. Yeah. She's got an empty bed next to her where Mel usually sleeps. And she is pissed. And Mel, instead of like being useful and letting people know when Shauna's asleep, she's not quite in on the plan yet. She comes to Jen's hut and says, fuck Shauna, whatever's going on, I want in. Which, can't really blame her for that. She just got shot at.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because we've said, like, since Mel has started playing a bigger role, it seems pretty clear that, like, on the one hand, she's, you know, what her motivations are. And it seems that she is attracted to Shauna and part of it is real. And then on the other hand, she's like trying to get close to the person with the most power and like who offers the most protection.
Yeah.
And those two things now are at odds, you know, like, and it's like her heart and her mind, you know?
Yeah.
And right now her heart has sort of won out.
But Mel is going to do what Mel needs to do to protect herself. And I think we are seeing that in both timelines now. But I thought it was interesting that she comes back to Jen's hut, which I imagine is where she was staying before this whole thing with Shauna.
Absolutely. And
it reminded me of what we were just talking about with Jen and Mel being this like pairing. It's a little bit Betty Finn. Jen is Betty Finn.
And
and
that's so funny.
Mel is Veronica hanging out with the Heathers.
Or what's Angela Chase's friend?
Yeah, Sharon. Yeah, it's like the friend you had before you got called up to the big leagues.
Exactly.
But at the same time, Misty is snooping around and she finds the broken antenna. And a light bulb goes on for Misty. This is complicated because it's like a light bulb goes on and she realizes that she has an answer.
But also
really, that answer
reveals.
Totally.
I love the tension that this immediately brings up. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where this piece goes because we've talked so much about how Misty and Nat relate in the present timeline and how sometimes it doesn't quite make sense. And then we look back and we see that they've had more interactions in the woods that we haven't seen yet that might kind of lead us to understand that more. We go to Joel and Hannah waiting up for the moment. And Joel, man, I know it's not Joel. Cody is so suspicious here. Like, he's like, I think they're asleep. You ready? Cut me loose. Toss me the knife. He's like trying to like be in control of the situation.
Yeah.
And I think it's nothing more than like he knows in his mind that he should be in charge, not the girls. She throws a little, who's Eric Chung? Asking about the name on his knapsack.
Yeah, has this changed for you at all?
I think it's just he got it at a thrift store. But then again, who knows?
Generally, yeah, that's how I feel. It's just anytime there is a woman on this show who is paranoid about something where there is an, there's a more Occam's razor explanation, it proves to be the more obvious thing. And so...
Yeah. No, I totally think that that's probably the case because especially after, and this is a little unfair because I'm also basing this on interviews with Joel McHale himself, where there's no indication in the way he talks about this role that there's some huge secret about Cody hiding behind the scenes. Like he could be doing a really good job of just keeping his mouth shut, but it seems like this was his role, was to be this like outside male, alpha male perspective that they have to dispatch.
Right.
And that presents this opportunity to escape that splits the group.
That's my feeling too. Again, I'm open to whatever, but that's how I feel so far.
He brings up her kid and she does seem to get emotional, cries a little bit, starts cutting herself loose. But in the meantime, Shauna has her spidey senses are tingling and she puts down the hair and gets up. Hannah frees Joel, but too late. Shauna has shown up with the gun. And we see, I loved the way they
got to get this gun away from Shauna.
I know. I agree. Everyone is so afraid of her though.
It is really fascinating. Like it almost doesn't matter that she has the gun. Like it does, obviously.
Yeah.
But like, they
know that she is like wildly unpredictable, I think. And so there's this fear of her that is just really like elemental. I mean, even in the present day, Lottie says it, like everyone's afraid of your mom to Callie. But Shauna shows up with the gun. And I liked how they framed like the people watching and waiting from the huts. Like you see Jen's face in the branches by firelight. It feels really like ominous.
Mm-hmm.
She asks Hannah who gave her the knife, and she throws Cody under the bus.
So fast.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. Good for her. I'm sorry. Like,
I mean, I think in the calculations that are happening in her head, it's like, do I put my lot in with this guy that I don't really know, I don't trust, and clearly has no respect for women and like is really out for himself? Or do I try to play into this weird cannibalistic cult society for a while and see if that will like pay off and lead to us getting out of here, which is safer, right?
Right. And also the morbid curiosity.
Yeah.
That seems very real for her of observing these girls and seeing.
She's got a science brain, man. This is like, she is envisioning the paper that she could write when she gets back that could get her the tenured professorship that she's always wanted.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Right.
Yeah. You know, publish or perish. But she throws Cody under the bus, and he calls her a lying fucking cunt.
Mm-hmm.
Which apparently wasn't in the script, and the shocked look on her face. Well, it was. Like, he talked to it wasn't in the written script. It was something the producer suggested he try, but didn't tell her. So her reaction to being called a cunt is actually, like, her shock, because she didn't know that was coming.
It's funny, because I know that word, like, I'm not afraid of that word.
Anymore, yeah.
But I do feel like it is more recently that this theme has kind of been taken out of it. That was like, if you called somebody a cunt in the, you know what I mean?
In the
like
90s.
It's still, a lot of people are probably every time you and I say it, there are a few people wincing, you know?
Right.
But back then I really feel like I could count the number of times I heard anybody say that word on one hand up until like 2005, maybe.
Yeah,
you know?
100%. I don't usually do a lot of like exclamation points in my notes. I tend to take pretty straightforward notes of what's happening so I can refer to it later. But here I wrote, her eyes change and Hannah stabs Cody. 3 exclamation points, holy shit, in all caps.
Yeah.
I was
right through the eyeball.
Expecting this. And that is my favorite thing when that happens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it's brutal. It's more eye stuff.
I know. One-eyed.
And
left.
One-Eyed Willy.
One-Eyed Willy. Oh, One-Eyed Willy. Yeah. Yep. Interesting.
And it's so funny because there's stuff like her reaction when Lottie kills Edwin, who I think you and I have called her husband. I don't know that it's been confirmed that they were married.
Yeah, her partner.
But her whatever, the dude she's involved with, her reaction being a little less than we might expect. And so at the time that seemed peculiar, but her ability to put a knife through some dude's eye, he did just call her a cunt, so that's part of it.
Well, this is more evidence that Keene/Kane is actually where they are from, because if she is born in PA but living in Jersey, maybe there's like, some of that is seeping in.
Yeah, she's exactly.
I also noted there's a big, huge X behind her made with the tree branches. And we've got an X thing.
Marks.
Yeah, we got that coming up later too. So
funny.
They love to do those little background, motifs. But she pulls the knife out of his eye, covered in blood, points it towards Shauna and says, "Please, I want to be a part of this."
Want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Not like there's something about that wording that I can't quite put my finger on. But she doesn't say like, I want to join all of you. Like, I want to be a part of this is very like
this company you're building from the ground up.
Like surely like it's like a distinct thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
The society you're building. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wrote, Jen and Mel are sad.
Yeah.
And Misty, this is what I mean about Misty being kind of, even though she's fake playing both sides, kind of also being on both sides, because she sighs and looks real sad here too. Like, oh geez, there it goes.
Yeah, I do think Misty is one of the ones who, like, I mean, early on, obviously she wanted to stay.
She's the reason. Yeah.
And so, well, who knows what the transponder would have done.
Right.
But as far as these girls would think, she's the reason if they find out. And that's what she thought. She thought she was the reason.
Yeah.
But I think at this point, she's kind of like, there's not much left for her out here. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. People have talked about the parallels or lack thereof between the teen timeline and the adult timeline. But with this episode, I feel like Misty finally getting tired of the bullshit in the woods and Misty finally tiring of Shauna's bullshit in the present day is an interesting parallel.
Totally.
Kind of, instead of following the crowd in both timelines, she's sort of thinking about what she wants.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well said.
So the group is waiting in the woods for Jen and Mel. They're kind of getting antsy. When they finally show up, their explanation is from Jen, another great Jen moment of the few we've had. Hannah shoved a knife through that guy's face. There's a lot of like background chatter because what's starting to happen is we're in Nat's perspective and she's kind of starting to black out as she realizes what's happening. Just sort of not literally, but like mentally black out.
Right. Yeah.
And we're hearing like, I'm sorry, what? We're not going. Shauna knows. Like,
man, it's just all of it coming down to just fucking Shauna is so...
I know. And so like she's going to be technically the reason that the rest of the people that die out there. Maybe. Like, we don't know. You never know what would have happened had they taken the path with Cody. But from everything we've seen so far, he also wanted to get the fuck out of there with them and never see any of them again. And so we have no reason right now to believe he wouldn't have actually tried to get them out.
Exactly.
But this scene with Sophie Thatcher, if she has an Emmy reel, this is so on it.
She's so good. I know we say it all the time and have been accused in certain spaces of maybe being a little too soft on Nat, but man, is Sophie Thatcher so good here.
This scene and the scene where she kills Ben are the two that I feel like there's something real deep that she had to reach for, and she found it. That was like guttural.
People who are brave enough to ugly cry on screen are really...
Well, she's one of the most
different kind.
Stunning young women in the world.
That's true.
But suddenly she's alone. And I think this is more a convention of like displaying how she's feeling versus everybody just disappearing and abandoning her.
Right. Yeah.
Because she can see her breath. And she looks up and the snow starts falling. Heartbreaking.
Really tough stuff. And like there's the onset of winter, obviously. And then just from a literary standpoint, like if you've read, James Joyce has all of his short stories in particular are heartbreaking, but he's got a collection of short stories called Dubliners. In each story, there is an epiphany. And in the last one, I think, The Dead, it's the epiphany is like a hopeless one. And it ends with the snow starting to fall as somebody kind of realizes the hopelessness of their situation. And I thought of that immediately, that anytime like snowfall very seldom is like an omen for, or it's like an auspicious sign.
Yeah, the winter's coming. The dark times are coming,
like even, Yeah, even aside from the practical, like, it's going to be, you know what I mean? Like, winter is coming.
Yeah, it's symbolic.
There's also just this, the symbolism of it.
Yeah. But this, like, it's one thing to be trapped in the woods and be in this weird cannibalistic society where everything is weird and unpredictable. It's another thing entirely to have some hope that that's going to end and then have it immediately taken away.
Absolutely.
It's fucking devastating.
Yeah. This is kind of worse than if these people had never shown up in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's worse because it's like, dangling that carrot. But she sees a light in the distance and follows it, which to me felt very Alice in Wonderland.
Or like, what are they called? Will-o'-the-wisps? Aren't they the ones that are the like... Oh, that's funny, because I think that's like an Irish thing, and so are banshees. Of the like people getting lost in the woods. I think it's an Irish thing, Will-o'-the-wisp. And seeing a light and thinking it's another person in the woods and following them out, and then they just get lost deeper and deeper in the woods. It's like a little bit of that too.
Yeah. She follows.
But yeah, very Alice in Wonderland.
It really felt like, Misty. I'm mixing my Alice in Wonderland metaphors, but like Misty is the Mad Hatter or something. But actually I'm thinking of, isn't it Anyway, my Alice in Wonderland knowledge is not where it should be. But it's Misty who she's following. Mm-hmm. And Misty is going to a separate tree where other electronics are hidden.
Right.
This is, you stash your spare electronics in trees in the woods, naturally.
In trees. Everybody knows that, obviously.
Exactly. But it's where Misty's hidden the black box. Mm-hmm. She's taking out parts. When I first watched this, it was too dark. I couldn't see what she was doing. Now I realize she was finding the antenna.
Yeah, this is an easy fix because they're screw on, screw off.
Yes.
So
yep.
This is what's so cool about the issue here is that it would take nothing at all to screw that antenna in. And then I don't know how those phones really work or whatever, but in terms of repairing this phone, that's not
hard. Yeah.
That's 10 seconds and they're back in business.
But again, like we said earlier, they have to get to a higher point for it to work.
Well, and she's got to explain where this, we know, Nat sees where it came from, but with everybody else,
if Nat
she'd have to explain.
Yeah.
Right.
Nat is the one person to find her where she still has a chance of being alive after this.
Right. You know what? That's so funny. Nat, nobody knows about the sat phone. Van and Ty do. Never mind.
Do. Yeah. But of anyone to find Misty, the one person to find her being Nat, who was hiding that she knew Ben was alive. There's something very fortuitous for Misty about it being Nat.
Totally.
Even though the shock and anger in her voice when she says, "Oh my God, you have the fucking transponder," is beautifully said.
Well, man, everything about this is so good because it's and Nat, under different circumstances, Nat's instinct might be to run to everybody and tell them that Misty destroyed it. But she knows as well as anybody that their only chance out at this point now might be that repairing that phone. And so everybody's kind of stuck in a weird little, it's really tangled.
And honestly, where half of the people are right now, Shauna, Ty, and Lottie, if you tell them, oh, we might have another way out, they're just going to find a way to fuck that up too.
Exactly.
So you can't run and tell everyone.
Now it's Nat and Misty have to figure out a way to tell Van and trust that because Van's the one with the phone, and trust that Van isn't going to immediately tell Ty.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. You got to work
really
the alliances.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we ended in the teen timeline. I feel like next week, almost all of the drama is going to be in that part of our dear show. But that's where we ended for now. Oh boy, here we go. In the present, in the hospital, our first, not first ever, but first in this last Adult Van episode, we get Teen Van and Adult Van interacting. Man,
I love them together.
Me too. It's so good. They're so themselves as actors, but also so linked in the way that they are approaching this character. Teen Van is sort of briefly playing the role of a hospital staff person. The way that they put the pen in their pocket is very hospital doctor / nurse. It's totally a nice touch.
It's really endearing.
It is. But Teen Van sits down, talks about Adult Van is looking around, asking where Ty is. Teen Van is oh, she's still here. Misty too, but Shauna straight up ditched you. But that figures, doesn't it? It does.
Yep. Yeah. Even young Van knows.
Yeah. And Adult Van asking the questions that we're all asking: is this a dream? Am I dead? We would love to know too.
Her line delivery on "Am I dead?" is really funny.
Oh my God.
She's got a few really good ones this episode, but
yes, definitely. But Teen Van says death is around every corner.
Yeah, this show is just kind of Final Destination. I think I said that early on.
Yeah. Yep. But we get our Goonies reference. And it's funny, she does the thing that I've had so many teenagers / college students do, where they start explaining something to you that is don't cite the dark magic to me, child, or whatever.
Yeah,
the line
I was there when it was written.
It was there when it was written. Yeah, because she's describing it in this like breathless, like it's one of the greatest quests of all time, and starts describing the whole plot. And adult Van is like, yes, child.
It's so sad because when she says like I've seen it 100 times more than you or whatever, and it's like it is weirdly bittersweet because obviously this teen Van isn't a real character, like a real person existing in this scene, but it like kind of struck me that adult Van gets to tell young Van that they live until now.
Yeah.
Even though it is just Van talking to herself, and even if it weren't, this Van knows she's alive now because she's talking to her. But there is just something of like, letting your younger self know that you survive when
right. And in that, I keep citing that interview with Liv, but I just watched it yesterday, and they were saying that
live more like die because she dies. Is that good? Should that get the trombone? It's that trombone that, yeah.
But in that interview, Liv was saying that like they saw it as their younger version of Van would think like how cool this adult version of me turned out to be.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that. That's all you want.
Teen Van talks about how it's a classic hero's journey. And then we get this X marks the spot comment. She says, Tice has been trying to show you she needs this too. And adult Van is kind of confused. Teen Van puts something in the IV, a little something for the road. She says, where am I going to get the treasure? So we've got our Goonies hero's journey quest situation set up for us from the very beginning.
Setting up a new little mini mystery for us in this episode, so that's fun. I really liked everything about this.
Yeah. So she wakes up and Ty has been sitting there watching her with tears in her eyes. We kind of realize this is the first time probably that Van has woken up since she crashed in the hospital, and like everybody was worried that she wouldn't make it, and they put her under sedation. But we got our Jersey reference back. Van says to Ty, you remember that time we were down the shore and that guy was absolutely housing that saltwater taffy? It was the last thing he wanted before he died. If you're not from Jersey, saltwater taffy is a very famous Jersey Shore treat. Not that you don't know what it is, but that it's like really associated with the Jersey Shore. I'm not trying to pretend people don't know what that is.
No, but I'm going to be so annoying because the saltwater taffy you can get in like I was going to say Wegmans, but that's an East Coast. That's a Northeast thing too. But the like saltwater taffy you can get at the grocery store is not the same as getting like fresh pulled saltwater taffy from down the shore. Yeah. I'm so annoying about this stuff, but it really is like that.
Well, it's a reference that only someone who grew up down the shore in Jersey would make in a TV show.
Right.
You know?
And also saying down the shore is a real...
Yeah, although it was the first time I wished that they'd tried a Jersey accent on, because I was like, it sounds weird the way that...
Down the shore.
Down the shore.
Yeah. But no one's going to the beach in New Jersey.
No one's going to the beach.
Unless you live down the shore and you're talking about leaving your shore house to walk to the sand, then you might say, we're going to walk down to the beach. You wouldn't say I'm going to the shore. Yes, you'd say I'm going to the beach.
Exactly. No, that's really important.
Because you're already at the shore.
Yeah. No,
it's so important.
Very important. Yeah. I'm glad we clarified. But Van doesn't like taffy.
Do you think it's annoying to people when they hear that we record often for like 3 hours and then cut it down to 2.5, and then what stays in is us getting nitpicky about the shore versus beach?
Yeah, maybe. Van says, I don't like taffy. Come on, Ty. And then in a way that this line read could have been so fucking cheesy, but Lauren Ambrose has such a dry like sensibility when she says Goonies never say die. It's like, fuck yeah. You have to mean it, and she means it. Yeah. But she means it in a very dry, like, you're right. It's just perfect. Yeah. And it is, I mean, so much of this show is about a love for that kind of nostalgia, and that's something we could really get into, because these are women who have had really horrific traumatic pasts, and so for Vanda love so much of the stuff from that time, when it would also make total sense for her to never want to think about
anything in the past is interesting, but yeah.
Yeah. So she throws off the oxygen mask, but then we find out, like, somehow got a portable oxygen tank for the road.
I don't know why I do know why that cracks me up, but man, does it crack me up.
Yeah, it's really funny.
That she's got this little...
Just walking around with her mask.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing keeping her alive, it seems to. How do you feel about her sudden miraculous recovery?
I mean, there is a medical thing where people who are about to die have a sudden burst of energy.
They rally. That's right.
Yeah. So
that's exactly right. You hear a lot of stories like that.
Yeah, that they seem suddenly back to themselves again and like lively, and then that's right before they pass away. So
it's the last rally.
Yep. But we go back to, I can't believe I have to talk about this again. We go back to Mel's house. Shauna's still threatening her with the bite. She's talking about how she's going to reveal her.
How much of this scene did you watch with your eyeballs?
Very little.
Okay.
Very little. I saw what was going on. I said, okay, I can just listen to this. And then I heard her spit the bite back at Shauna, and that's when I looked. She spits it in her eyes.
Yeah, it's gross.
Ugh. For some reason, this was, because I think we got back to it after the worst of it, was like not quite as bad for me, but it was still pretty bad.
It's funny. I thought it was it felt grosser to me. I think because it felt more, it was like calmer.
Right.
And and out of context of the earlier fight.
Yeah.
There was just something. I also watched it. So
yeah,
there's
that too.
There's that. The skin just looks like skin.
Let's
you
not.
Know what I mean?
Nope. No, I don't. And I don't want to. Nope. So they have a little roll around fight, and Shauna pulls out a chunk of her hair. Shauna loves a little souvenir to hang on to for later.
She really does.
Yeah. A little hair remnant.
She's like a real
Victorian
serial well,
we went in two different directions with it.
But we're both correct.
Yeah. Serial killer or person who like puts a lock of hair in a locket in the Victorian times.
Yeah, she's got a little bit of both going on. But it's funny because we know she's a biter, we know she's like a souvenir keeper.
Mm-hmm.
Like we see all of this stuff building up.
Yeah, but she does manage to get away. Shauna throws a jar of jam, it looks like, against the wall as she runs out.
Uh-huh.
And I wrote, Mel gets in her Honda Odyssey, which is...
Anytime we're reminded that they're just women, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is just her car.
Yep.
It was really satisfying to see Shauna angrily pounding on those windows, because good luck.
I know. But Chekhov's gas tank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you called that really good.
She is almost out of gas. But this is where we get a little more another hint that Mel is not just the innocent, boring mom that she's pretending to be.
It's like we said last week. It makes no sense for her to send that tape with or without a note. Or not even that, just that she, even if on the outside her life seems like she's just being a nice person, she has the undercurrent of this lie that keeps it Yeah.
And she smiles a little bit as she drives away from Shauna.
Yeah.
The game is on.
Mm-hmm.
Next time we come back to this timeline, we're in the car with Van Ty and Misty. I appreciate Ty's Gen X inability to get the Bluetooth to work. That gave me a little giggle. But what really gave me a giggle was the return of Colonial Williamsburg. Misty says they're 20 minutes from the daughter's house and 40 minutes from Colonial Williamsburg, in case anyone feels like churning butter after we find Shauna. Thank you, Christina Ricci, for your brilliance and that line delivery. They're having a conversation about what's going to happen when they find Shauna. We don't know what she's done yet, but Misty says, I'm sure it's reasonable. I love how they've made Misty the voice of reason suddenly.
Not suddenly. I've been saying all along, Misty's...
Okay, but when this show first started, I feel like Shauna was here, like in one place, where she's this like semi-relatable character who's like really funny and we kind of relate to her and we like her. She's the sidekick, like naturally the underdog. We're going to root for her. Misty's this weirdo, maybe serial killer type. And as the show has gone on, they've kind of like...
They've sort of crisscrossed a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
But they drive by just a random person on the side of the road having run out of gas.
It's so funny because it like at this point they don't know Melissa's alive.
No.
They all think they're looking for Hannah's daughter and that's the end of it.
Exactly. Yeah, they have
Can you
no
imagine?
idea. No, of course I can't. I can't imagine anything in this show. Oh my God.
You know what? Really good point. Really, really good point. So true.
But Misty recognizes her.
Mm-hmm.
She yells her name out the window, Melissa. She sees Misty and the crew in the car and naturally kind of freaks out. They reverse to try to trap her.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost works. They stop. She like runs into the car, but then runs around it. She's getting away, and I wrote, the hunt is on. Because
I know.
As soon as those girls start running, man, it's like...
They lock in.
They do.
It is
yeah.
wild to see.
Ty chases her first, takes her legs out, like she did to fucking Allie in the first episode.
That's Ty's move. That's Ty's
her
move.
But Misty takes a moment to grab the tire iron out of the back of the car.
It's a very Misty.
Very practical.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Van notices that they're stopped near railroad tracks. We get the X marks the spot sign. Man, we can see signs wherever we want to. If we try hard enough.
Totally.
But so we get everyone in the car together. I love this group on a road trip so much.
Truly.
It's really funny to see them all just stuck in a car together.
Mm-hmm.
Van is...
I hope Misty really loves it, because man, does she love a road trip. That's part of the Misty that I
relate to,
connect with. Yeah,
same. Van's staring at Melissa like she's an alien, and in classic Lauren Ambrose dry fashion says, "So how you been?" So good.
Man, she's a delight.
I know. Missy says you're dead. Like, not that you're dead, but like you're dead.
But it is funny to think like Shauna's got it out for you now, so you might as well.
You kind of are, yeah. This is this is our exposition car ride where, you know, Mel tells them that Shauna broke into her house. Ty asks if she sent the tape. Mel says yes, but there's a lot more to it.
Is there more to it?
I don't know. I
Even
mean,
based on what she says is in the note, there's really not much more to it.
Yeah. I think she's just trying
less to it than what the girls think. If she's telling the truth, there's less to it.
I think she's just trying to, like, I don't know, save face and be like, no, guys, really, there's a reason. Don't kill me or whatever.
This isn't what it looks like.
But she says, she's talking about how Shauna's lost it. She says, she made me eat my fucking arm. And Misty's face is so funny here. She's just like, oh, ew.
Not shocked necessarily, but like skeeved. She's just like skeeved.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very Skibots moment. Ty says, oh, we've got to find her. And Mel's like, not with me, you don't. And tries to get out, but Ty locks the doors. Van threatens her and says, shut up or you really will be dead. And Ty looks really like proud and excited here.
Oh, I know.
It's like, oh, my girlfriend, the possible murderer, maybe. Crossing our fingers, hope so. Back at Mel's house, I wrote, Shauna's cleaning up blood at the sink and looking peeved about it. She still has blood on her face. This is so Lottie walking around with Edwin's blood on her face. She's just not conscious of this at all.
These girls are just so used to being covered in other people's blood that they don't even, it just doesn't bother them.
Not at all. And I just keep thinking about like how impossible this is actually to explain to anyone coming in the door. Like if it's not them, if it's Alex coming home, like there's blood on the walls, there's blood all over Shauna's face. Like it's just, it's quite the crime scene. But she hears the door open, grabs the knife, and then realizes she hears Van first and they come in. Shauna says, I might have made things a little bit worse.
Whoops.
Understatement, Shauna. Then she sees that Mel is with them and says, how did you find her? She ran out of gas.
It is so funny and almost unbelievable
Yeah.
But these women just keep finding each other whether they want to or not. So
I know. Shauna says, I guess you should have listened to your wife. This scene with them is really, I love when all of them are together trying to explain their own versions of events.
Right.
And trying to negotiate with these other crazy people about these crazy things with their like internal logic.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Shauna's immediately like, we got to tie her up, and immediately blaming her for killing Lottie because she sent the tape. Misty says, not so fast, Martha Misdirect, which needs to be someone's drag name. And brings up the fact that Shauna's DNA is under Lottie's fingernails and the receipt. She says she was in the city the day Lottie died, and Ty and Van didn't know that beforehand. Mm-hmm. So everybody's kind of throwing blame around. But have we said it yet this episode? The show's a comedy?
Yellowjackets is a comedy? I don't think we have.
Because Van asked what Shauna was doing in the city, and she says, I was getting a cat. And Misty says, what a totally satisfying answer. And Shauna's explanation, I went to the Humane Society because I saw on their website that they happen to have this cat that looks exactly the same as this other cat that Jeff was trying to find for his karma.
For his karma.
Misty says, you expect us to believe this tale of two cats? Just so much good shit packed into this little scene.
Yeah.
But Misty says she's trying to pin it on Melissa. Shauna says Melissa sent the tape. So she's obviously the one who sent the phone or planted the phone, cut my brakes, and locked me in the freezer. And we get the best fucking reveal.
Oh, man.
I loved this.
It's so funny because it's barely a reveal because it's what we thought, but for Shauna.
I didn't think it was Misty. I thought it was just that the freezer just shut on her.
Oh, I thought, so do you have Misty's line here, how she says it?
Yes, she says, oh, for the love of God, the freezer was me. You've been such an absolute asshole that I thought a little time in the freezer would do you some good. I didn't write down the part where she talks about it, but the lock had been broken for months. So
I took it as she just didn't tell her that the lock was broken and knew that if she went in there, she'd get locked in.
I think that's basically how it happened, but yeah.
Yeah. But either way, it's Misty knew that the likelihood of Shauna getting trapped in that freezer was pretty high. And I love that how offhandedly she throws that out there.
Yeah. This reminds me a lot of the scene at Lottie's compound where suddenly everyone is like finding out what the other people did. You know, like it's where Van finds out about Adam. It's where they find out that Misty locked Jessica Roberts in her basement. There's all these reveals. Like they also find out that it was Jeff blackmailing. It's like they get together and all these secrets come out.
Exactly.
And we realize they've all been
communication
like,
is so important.
Exactly. They're not very good at it.
I just love that Shauna keeps saying, cut my brakes. Even if you think like somebody sabotaged your car, it's not your brakes that failed. You're so clinging to that. Like you gotta let it go.
But I love the fact that like we have been wondering if it's just all Shauna being paranoid. And the more that everyone else talked about Shauna being paranoid, the more we were like, well, maybe she's not totally paranoid. Because they're making it really clear that they want us to think she's being really paranoid.
Right.
And I like the fact that at least one of those things is actually someone's fault, basically.
Right. But it's one of their faults. It's not some outsider with some big plan. It's...
Yeah.
Ty
tries to refocus. Interestingly, Misty says, so you're going to take her side, and Mel says, of course she is. Shauna and Ty, man, one of the things we talked about when we both rewatched the premiere before we talked to Ashley Lyle, an episode coming out on Wednesday, was how Shauna and Ty have really been kind of paired as these behind-the-scenes forces the whole time.
I mean, since day one, that conversation they have about Allie, they're the last two talking about it.
Yep.
Shauna says, Jack, you'll never go for it. And Ty says, well, then she better not find out or something like that. And it's so, and it's everything. Go back and watch that conversation. Yeah. Everything you need to know about these main girls is in that conversation.
Yeah. Ty and Shauna have been paired like this from the beginning.
But but so ready to turn on each other, because then when it gets revealed when they're in the woods at that party in that same episode where Ty actually does it, it's Ty and Shauna who get in the ugliest fight there, because Shauna throws Ty under the bus, even though like Shauna was part of the planning, but acts like refuses to admit that she has anything to do with it.
Right. I do think that's pre-Woods Shauna, and now that has kind of fallen away, because I feel like pre-Woods Shauna, it was like, well, you did something that was too much and it's drawing attention, versus like freezing her out or doing something more behind the scenes. But I think now this Shauna wouldn't have that same reaction.
Right.
I mean, we know she didn't, because when Lottie asked Edwin, she laughed. So, but Misty is standing up for herself.
I love it.
Yeah. Ty says we have to mitigate the situation, and Misty says, no, you'll have to find some other maid to clean this up. And she storms out, but not before saying that she's going to get to the bottom of it. And Shauna, who still has blood on her face, is rolling her eyes at Misty. And I'm like, bitch, come on.
I know.
You are the problem. So we're back at Shauna's house. Callie's rolling a joint, and we hear Jeff in the background yelling, oh, hells yeah. Hell yes. He's like singing, comes in, celebrating, says, is that weed? Callie Sadecki, are you rolling a joint? Callie, dry as ever. I couldn't find my pipe. But he got the job.
Yeah.
The Joels reconsidered.
Yeah, and the further away you are from Shauna, the better your life is.
Right? Seriously. Callie's looking pretty despondent, though. Which, you know, her mom is basically missing on some murder spree hunt thing. So I get it. She says, anything else? And he says, yeah, those nugs are too big. You'll never get an even smoke unless you grind them up some more.
It's really sweet. It's not, the most...
It's a teaching moment.
Yeah, it's not the most responsible choice necessarily, but it is, like, to me, it feels like a calculated one where he's like, I can take this moment to, like, he's
trying to bond with his daughter.
Yeah, in a time when she really needs a parent that she can trust and count on. So
yeah.
I think this choice was the right one. Yeah, it's really sweet.
I mean, the two of them really feel like they're off on an isolated journey now. That Shauna has kind of abandoned them, and they're not trusting her, and they feel like a team in an interesting way.
I think so too.
So Misty has taken off. She gets out of an Uber at some random field. I love her. Of course, she's the person that will talk your ear off in an Uber.
I know. It's
Thanks,
really
Dave.
good.
I'll be sure to check out your aquarium ornaments on Etsy.
They had to decide what kind of Etsy shop he was going to have.
Aquarium ornaments is so odd.
Odd and specific.
Yeah.
Are they ornaments for your aquarium, or like to ornament your aquarium?
I honestly don't know.
Ornaments that look like aquariums.
Oh, interesting. I bet that's more what it actually was. I was trying to imagine because that's a thing that I can imagine existing in the world.
There's a Screaming Female song called Ornament, and it rules. That's all.
Okay.
That's all I have to say about that. We get our helicopter.
Yep. Scene. Helicopter lands in the field. Walter gets out in shorts, naturally.
Of course. Gonna put his best calf forward for Misty.
More little slapstick comedy. Says, what do you think? She says, it's excessive. And he can't quite hear because of the blades of the helicopter. He says, I know, right? Part of me was afraid you'd think it was excessive. But Keith Morrison owed him a favor. This is a fun little drop.
Okay, this is so funny because, like, because it's just like, it's funny. He's the Dateline guy, if you don't know. Yeah. So that's,
and they brought up Dateline a bunch in this show.
Yeah. And so that's funny but it also is like, what is this little citizen detective? What is he so like?
I know.
That's like if I played T-ball, I'm 40 years old. If I played T-ball and I was like, Babe Ruth owes me a favor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or a living baseball player. I don't know. Chase Utley owes me a favor.
There you go.
And like,
yeah,
why would he ever owe me a favor? You know what I mean?
The Dateline references are interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. And I know that we are turning into the Yellowjackets themselves, where we are trying to like put meaning into everything, and maybe it's just funny that the Dateline guy would owe Walter a favor, but it is also like, well, what's Walter up to when he's not on screen?
Well, and a lot of this is turning out to be a lot of either it's always been there and I didn't notice until recently, or there have been a lot of references recently to like viewing or watching what's happening, like
surveillance,
all of that. So yeah, I don't think it's nothing, but back at Mel's house, Ty is tying her up.
That's why they call her Ty.
Yeah, because she's tying her up, talking about how the family is going to come home and like what to do about this problem. Mel says, "I'm not the problem. Shauna is the problem. You're all the fucking problem." Hey guys.
Yeah. Hey guys, guess what?
You're all the problem.
You're all the problem.
But Ty brings up Adam. She says this is kind of like Adam, except there's no body yet. They keep doing this. This is like they're revealing all of these things to each other, and there's never any shock behind it. You know, Mel says, "Who's Adam? This happened before, and there was a body." Shauna says, "You just dug
not grave." In a way where she's like, "Yeah, that line."
Yeah. But no, not in a way like she's surprised. In a way like she's like, oh, good Lord.
Here we go. Yeah,
exactly. But like, she does, I mean, Mel is clearly also psychotic, but when she calls Shauna out, I'm really here for it. She says, Shauna acted like a lunatic and killed this Adam, made you guys clean it up, and she was wrong then too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time. She's never not wrong.
I know. I wrote, Shauna flops around a bit. She does this like, oh, guys, like with her hands, like, guys, well, you know, it's really funny. But she has something on Mel that they don't know. So she turns it around and says, you know, brings home a dead woman's tape and then marries her daughter.
Yeah, pretty crazy, huh?
I know. Ty's face when she says, you married Hannah's kid?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they both, Ty and Van both are like, whoa.
Yeah, even for us.
We've
done
crazy.
Some shit.
Yeah. They put not well tied up enough Mel by the fireplace to continue having their conversation. Van goes out to the car and Mel closes the flue. And this is a gas fireplace, so it is not going to bring smoke into the house like I originally assumed it would. It's going to bring carbon monoxide into the house.
Which you can't smell. It's the silent killer. Everybody knows.
Yes, we've had.
I don't know how long it would take to fill up the house, but
I know. But we had conversations.
I'm not bothered by it.
We had conversations about carbon dioxide recently when we were talking about the cave gas. Huh.
Yep.
It's
all coming back.
I also just want to note
the song, it's about gas.
A great line by Ty here. Should have thought of that before you turned your arm into sashimi. Yikes. I know. But Van notably goes out to the car to take a break because she still does have terminal cancer.
Right.
Back at Shauna's house, Jeff has gotten a cheese grater for the nugs. He says, don't bogart it, Callie.
Do you think it was the same grater they used to grate the tattoos off of Adam, or was that probably Misty's grater?
Oh, for fuck's sake. I'm sure that was either Misty's or it was at Adam's house.
Okay.
Yeah. Yikes. I mean, this is the woman who feeds rabbits that she stabbed in her garden to her family, but
yeah, so who knows?
Yeah, but they're having a good time. They're hanging out.
Yeah, it's really sweet.
She says, easy killer, that stuff's top shelf when he takes too big of a drag.
He can handle it.
Yeah. But, oh my God, this is so sweet. He says, we should celebrate my new job. Let's be ladies who lunch.
I know.
He lays back on the bed and Callie says, you're not a lady. And he says, I'm totally a lady, a sexy lady. Look at these legs. So cute.
Yeah.
He's trying so hard to like take her mind off of what's going on.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Says, let's go to that new place on Main. Pigeon? She's squab. But then she says, the stakes are like $80. Mom would kill us.
Yep.
If we spent that much. That's how I heard it. Mom would kill us. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They have a conversation about what he said to the Joels, like whether he really meant it, how he really feels. He says it's just something I said to save my ass, but we're kind of like, well, is it?
No, I mean, it's true, so.
But she's comforting him because he's getting kind of choked up. She says, it's okay if you feel that way. I do.
I really love to see these two together, but it makes me so sad to see the parentified child here.
100%.
Like,
Yep. I wrote that down exactly. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Stone Temple Pilots' Creep is playing, where he repeats really over and over again the line, I'm half the man I used to be.
Yeah.
He's crying. She's comforting him, and he says, it's hard being married, and with your mom, it's lonely.
Oh, man, is that sad. Because that's like, he's felt that way forever.
Yeah.
Like, he's almost not even talking about all of the murder and the cheating.
His whole, it's like, it's one of the most sort of like intensely true things that anyone has said on the show.
Exactly. And it sucks that he has to say it to his daughter.
Kid. I know.
But, yeah.
The camera pauses on Callie's face here. And there's been a lot of hay made of what that expression means. To me, it's just sadness and grief and sympathy for her dad. But I'm sure we'll find out. Oh, can I just move into Walter's house? Like, not with him in it, but like that house.
Well, I mean, we're a minute.
I don't trust a man who does
to Walter's house with Walter in it.
I don't trust a man who does 2 jigsaw puzzles at the same time.
He's just using both sides of his brain. That's not how that works.
No.
But I do love it.
But I noted immediately the song that's playing here. Because Hold On by Wilson Phillips is the song that played when Misty smashed the black box.
That's funny because they don't bring songs back very often.
No, they don't.
I can't think of too many examples. We get another example in this episode, but...
So Hold On is playing when she goes to Walter's house, or when they're at Walter's house. It plays first in episode 2 of season 1 when she answers the phone when she's being bullied and is being harassed. And then at the end of the episode, Misty and Natalie in the present are going on the road together, and it's playing on the car stereo, but it continues into the flashback when she smashes the black box. So that song is very significant to Misty.
It's to Misty. Well, and I'm working through something with this because the first time we hear it, like you said, is in that scene where she's being bullied over the phone, which is a flashback in the past. It's like 3 years earlier or something like that. I think it's 1992. 1992, is that right? And it's before. It seems to be before Misty has really done anything.
We think
she's just like the bullied. She's just like the bullied weirdo at that point. It seems like, and we talk about like kids like Misty are made. Like I think we've talked about kids that I went to school with who were really difficult to be in a room with, but were really horrifically bullied, and so it's kind of like, well, I kind of get why they'd be that way. And so Misty's desperation to fit in and be one of the group, kind of hearkening back to this early moment, is what leads her to destroy the transponder, because they're looking to her as like a source of strength in that scene, because that's when they realize that she kind of, and so then what's happening here that connects that thread?
I don't know, but there's a lyric in that song that is, you've got no one to blame for your unhappiness. You got yourself into your own mess. Like,
yeah, girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's what we've been saying. Is this telling us to trust Walter, that he's not?
I don't think so. I'm not trusting Walter.
Or is it telling us don't trust Walter because Misty, you brought him into this?
Yeah. Interestingly, okay, wait, I don't want to belabor this because we have a lot to get to still, but another line in the song is, someday somebody's going to make you want, I mean, famously. I always think of Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle.
Jersey.
Yeah. Someday somebody's going to make you want to turn around and say goodbye. Until then, baby, are you going to let him hold you down and make you cry? So
Did you know? There's a change.
It could be a sign of Misty sort of separating herself from the group.
That's great to bring it back the third time. The first time is when they start being cruel to her. The second time is her trying to fit in with them despite, or in a way because of that cruelty. And then the third time is her breaking free.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Man, this podcast is free. That was really good. Okay. Anyway, they're at Walter's house. And he gets Misty a martini a la Misty, double chocolate, extra shaken.
You know what's the thing about this? I know we can't spend all of our time talking about Walter, even though I want to, but it's like they really did spend a lot of time together. That they have, she has a signature drink that he is well aware of,
but also he is basically stalking her. Like, he knows everything about her, whether she has told him or not at this point, it seems like.
Yeah, but we don't know what she has or hasn't told him because they've spent a lot of time together off camera.
Yeah. But I also think that
I'm on Walter's side.
I know you are, and I'm not.
I don't care whether he's stalking her or not.
He clearly is.
I'm Team Walter.
He clearly is. But this is such an interesting conversation because I was so trying to read his face. She is basically saying, like, do you think we could have been wrong about Shauna killing Lottie? And he's trying to talk her out of it. She says her cat story actually checks out. And Walter says, maybe the cat waited in the car during the murder.
But like, the cat story actually checks out. It's like, I know Misty didn't know that, but we know that because we saw the cat. But it's like, if again, I don't think Shauna killed Lottie, but although maybe, I don't know, whatever. Aside, that's if Shauna did see Lottie at the time of her death. Yeah, the cat story checks out because Shauna did that so she'd have an alibi for why she was in the city to do something else. That's the whole point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we don't know how long she was in the city for.
Right.
It tells us nothing.
No, you're right. It tells us nothing. But I also just feel like he is deflecting. Like he's trying to be like, no, duh. Like, you know.
Well, maybe he wants her to kill all of these women or let them go down so he can have her to himself.
Well, that's been my feeling all along is like if he's not like super nefariously involved in some Machiavellian scheme, the obvious answer to me is that he is trying to separate her from the people in her life.
God forbid a man be loyal, you know?
Oh my God.
This is the line I start taking. This is
Lord.
This is my new angle on Walter. Get you a man who knows how you like your martini.
Yeah, and follows you home and hacks your phone.
A man who will cash in his big favor with Keith Morrison to bring you a helicopter.
He says, I know you've made it clear that me editorializing on the interpersonal dynamics between you and your teammates is unwelcome.
It's a very Milchick.
Yeah. Stop talking shit about my friends. He says her judgment is clouded, but then she starts working him. Like, she basically is, like, kind of rolling her eyes at him behind her eyes. Like,
yes.
She mentions the cloned phone, which he goes to get. He says, so glad we finally get to work this case together.
Work this case. He still
I know.
Doesn't really get that this is Misty's real life.
Yeah. But she wants to get rid of him so she can look at the phone. So she asks, no chocolate shavings. He goes to do it.
Do you buy this from him?
I am on the fence.
Isn't he too smart to leave that phone like that?
Generally, I would say yes. But she does seem to see something. So it's like, does he want her to see it or?
Exactly.
Yeah, we don't know.
It's so Sherlock and Moriarty for them to each be one step ahead of the other one, and neither one of them knowing who really has the upper hand here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But as he goes inside, she looks at something on the phone. She sees a photo of flowers. I think they're lilies, a glass of wine, which some Reddit detectives have noted looks very much like it's in Walter's house. And then something we can't see that causes her to say, oh my God, and then to leave. When Walter comes out and sees that she is gone, his eyes change.
Yeah, but it's really hard to pinpoint.
To me, it was like super clear that it was like he goes from this play acting thing he's doing to himself where he's like, fuck, like, or something like, you know, a real moment.
It definitely a real moment. I wondered if it was like he thought whatever she saw on the phone would like that, like it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is because I was like, oh, I wonder if he was expecting her to confront him and not run off if she saw what was on the phone. But then if that were the case, why not just show her what was on the phone? Why make it be but maybe he thought she wouldn't try. Who knows? Like, there's a lot that it could be.
Yeah.
But it's closer to, it's not exactly the same face, but it's closer to the face he makes when she tells him, like, you wouldn't understand the bond you have with people in a life or death situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It really feels like he's going from, like, I am putting on this facade of some sort, this play acting thing that I'm doing with Misty for whatever reason he's doing it.
Right, exactly.
To this is his real,
it falls away.
This is his real response. Yeah,
totally. And then he takes a sip of the martini.
Yes,
it's a really good. I wonder how many takes they took of him taking a sip from that martini. He does a good job.
I mean, he's a professional. And so right after this, we go back to Mel's house. We're kind of jumping around a lot here, but Van comes in from the car and discovers that Mel has closed the flu and that everybody has passed out.
Can you imagine, like, you think you're done dealing with poisonous gas and you're
right?
like,
I mean,
here we are again.
You stay away from caves, think, you're okay, but
nope.
So Van goes to help Ty. Mel is crawling across the floor.
Did she think she was going to be... I guess she did last a little longer than the other ones.
Yeah.
She's conscious, at least.
Yeah, I don't know how she did, but she's crawling away.
She is good at holding her breath.
Maybe. She tells Van what happened, that she closed the flue on the fireplace. And, of course, Van has oxygen. Conveniently.
So convenient. It's so I really was kind of tickled by the way this all comes together.
I know, other than the end. But
yeah, I was not so tickled there.
No. But she first drags Ty outside, and this is where we get the other half of the other phone hallucination that we've been waiting for. So Ty is near death, apparently, from carbon monoxide poisoning. And she's hallucinating that she's in a cave, because that's where gases are.
Are we sure she's hallucinating?
Who the fuck knows? She's having a dream, a memory, altered experience, a supernatural moment. She's having something.
I think it's somehow, in a way, all of the above.
Yeah.
But none of the above, I
noted that she hears dripping, which we've been there before. But a phone rings in the cave.
I love this so much. I think it's so fun.
It's like, it's not the same type of phone that Van had in the box, but it's from a similar era.
Exactly.
I think I also had a similar phone to this with the light up neon inside.
Totally. Do you think this was the phone young Ty had? So when she and Van were on the phones as kids, Ty was talking on this phone and Van was talking on the one we saw in her boxes.
Oh, that's so cute. Yeah, probably.
What if it was a Garfield phone in this scene?
That would be great.
This scene might be a little less impactful if Garfield were here, but
yeah, that might kind of ruin the mood. But we've got our bisexual lighting going on, even though, as far as we know, Ty is full gay. But we've got our purple lighting with the pink phone, and other Ty and Ty are having a face-off.
I wanted this to be an hour long.
This was the fastest. This is my one hiccup. The one thing that kind of caught me off guard with this episode was it was really fast, which was fine. I don't really need the hallucinations I don't need a Ty on Ty fight to go on for a long time. But I was a little I was a little confused as to how she won. Theoretically.
She hit her real hard. My guess is they filmed a longer sequence, and then when it was time to edit this episode down, they were like, that had to go. Because it just, to have a whole set here for it, and to put in the work of whatever stunt double and the editing they would have had to have done. But I really wanted a Buffy style fight where the two of them, because it's a hallucination or whatever, or whatever's going on, have super
they both have swords.
Yeah, exactly. And they both know jujitsu or whatever. And it goes on for 15 minutes. I would have loved that.
They're cartwheeling off the walls of the cave.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was picturing.
Yeah.
But no, it's quick.
Yeah. That would have been more along the lines of the Misty hallucination, which I might have felt a little odd in the moment, considering what we're about to see.
That's a good point, though. We do have,
Yeah. We have a very campy,
some, like, sillier, campier stuff. So it could have worked, except for, like you said,
right. In this episode, maybe not.
Yeah.
But it's Van on the phone telling her to breathe as she is in person. And Ty comes back because Van has oxygen with her.
Or because she defeated other Ty.
Right. And she says, "It's me." And I wrote, "Is it?" How did she get Ty back? That was I just was like, I don't know, man.
I mean, so there are 12 answers to this. I guess there are really, like, maybe 2 or 3. One is because our Ty defeated other Ty in a battle.
Sure.
One is, well, there's only one Ty.
There has only been one Ty, yeah.
And, for whatever reason.
Yeah. They integrated.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah.
And then another one is, although I don't think this is the case, I think because Van recognizes that it's really her, we're supposed to know that other Ty isn't behind the wheel right now.
Yeah.
But in theory, it could be other Ty lying.
Right.
It's not, but I think that's, like, a third option.
So Van goes to get Shauna out of the kitchen and, like, leaves her with Ty, goes back, grabs the knife, and stands over Mel. And I wrote, "Come on, Van.
You don't
want to do this." Yeah.
We know you can't.
Honestly, like, I actually, as much as I didn't want to lose Lauren Ambrose and adult Van, like, I would have been so upset if they had Van actually kill her. Because I feel like it would have been so, like, just not right with the character we've been developing these, like, I almost said these feelings for. this character that we're in love with. Yeah. So I guess not that it's one or the other, but I'm glad it wasn't that.
Yeah, I agree. Did you think there was a chance she was going to do it?
Not really. I thought she was going to try, like she did, but I think because we had just seen them in the teen timeline being, like, kind of okay with each other, and her kind of covering up Mel when she peed herself, like,
right.
It wouldn't have seemed right to me to just go from that to her. I mean, it didn't in that way. It was pretty shocking what ended up happening because of that same kindness. But this is when Radiohead kicks in, exit music for a film.
It's perfect.
I know.
This is such a good choice here, and I just, as soon as it came in, I was like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Van cuts her ties, and she rolls over, and Mel says, "That's not the only option, Van." And Van says, "It could end now. I have cancer. There's a chance that if I kill you right now, maybe I'll be allowed to live." And Mel says, "You don't really believe that. All those sacrifices, those rewards, they weren't real." And she says, "I don't know that." And I'm like, "Yeah, you do."
Yeah.
But this is where it got rough. She said, "You're different, Van. There's goodness in you. There always has been." And Mel literally offers herself up as a sacrifice.
She knows.
Yeah, she knows she's not going to do it. I'm editorializing in my notes in all caps. I was like, "Don't, Van." She says, "I'll be your sacrifice." And she tries, but she can't do it, as we expected. She's all upset. And she says, "Why can't I be that?"
Oh, something about that really broke my heart. I'm glad you can't be that, but
yeah, no, totally. And Mel says, "You don't want to be," and she says, "No, I don't." And then they're both sitting on the floor, and Mel comes over and looks like she's going to hug her for a minute, and or make out. I don't know. Maybe I'm just.
No, there was a half second where I was like,
it wasn't just me like wish casting.
No, are they gonna
kiss? I just keep yelling it, and one of these days it'll happen. But she puts her hand on Van's hand that holds holding the knife, and literally like stabs Van with Van's own like hand and knife, which was
really rough.
Really rough. And then she says, "But I do. Isn't this what it wants?" And it's like, we knew there was more to Mel than just a nice, a normal, boring life. That like, you don't marry the child of the person you helped kill in the woods if you're okay. But
even just the fact that she said she'd been watching her for years didn't sit right with me last week. Like, it's just not. And just the way that she interacted with Shauna in the early days, like you can tell when she cuts Ben's heel that she gets a real thrill out of it.
Yeah.
She was not just going along to like stay safe and get in Shauna's good graces. There's darkness in Mel.
Totally. But it's funny how fast we forget, because it's like I think we're all trained to root for the underdog or the sidekick. And so as soon as it's clear that she's Shauna's sidekick and Shauna's being kind of a dick, we're like, oh no, Mel's fine. Mel's good. We like Mel, and it's like how quickly we forget what she did to Ben.
Who these girls are, exactly.
Yeah. But then we get the plane scene. So young Van and older Van are on the plane, and teen Van says, I know it's hard to watch, because they're watching a projection, an old school projection of Van on the floor dying. And she says, Ty is crying on the screen over Van. And adult Van says, why would you send me in there if you knew I was just going to die? And teen Van says, it wasn't my call. This is just how our story goes. And then adult Van says, you said I was going to be the hero. And teen Van says, you are. You saved them. You got the real love of our life back. You showed me a better treasure. Surviving this was never the reward.
She's so good here.
It's so good.
Fucking good here. It's crazy.
The two of them together, it's like magic, the two of them in a scene together. Adult Van says, what does that mean? If this isn't the real ending, then tell me what happens. And teen Van says, where would be the real fun in that? And then teen Van disappears. Adult Van is on the plane by herself. We see the lights of the RGB projector, and a different version of Glycerine plays. So, yeah, the plane is back.
It's funny because the first time we saw the plane with Nat, it felt a little odd and a little rushed. And here, it really worked for me in a way that sort of fixes, maybe because they had more time to think about it or figure out how it was going to work. It kind of like retroactively, I feel a little better about Nat's plane scene.
Well, I think we had more time with Van knowing we were going to lose her.
That's true too.
So we were able to like be a little more prepared for it. We've seen the plane thing before, so now we kind of recognize it. Like, I feel like with Nat, it was so sudden, and it was so, like, with Nat on the plane, there was so much distress, and, like, the eye contact with the camera, like, the sort of despair or like horror at what was happening. It wasn't like that with Van in this one. Like, she obviously wasn't thrilled that she was dying, but she was more like this is bullshit than like, And
I think adding the screen really, it made it like a little, it felt a little, I hate to use the word camp for everything that feels a little quirky, but it was like, it felt a little more like Twin Peaksy to me. The way it was used in this episode in a way, and like maybe it makes more sense for Van's character.
Well, yeah, to watch it on a screen,
and something a little more offbeat, and that they're like,
well, and there's a little remove when there's a screen involved instead of like a direct to camera, like Natalie seeming like desperate not to go,
right? Yeah.
So.
And that young Van felt a little more in control of what was, even though she says it's not her call, but she's kind of like shepherding her through in a way that it didn't feel quite the same with young Nat. So I just felt like Van was in like, I just felt better about it.
Well, and that's literally what Liv Houston was saying about this scene when they had that interview. They said like, they talked about teen Van taking care of adult Van as she goes.
It's really sweet.
Yeah.
And sad. And it feels to me like there's a little new wrinkle to the mystery introduced in the way Teen Van is talking, and I don't know if that's the intention, if there's something new we're supposed to be looking for, if it's just more of like a fate kind of conversation where she's saying like, this is just how our story goes, all of that. It wasn't my call to make. But when she says like, where would be the fun in that, or where's the real fun in that, it feels to me Like there's something we don't know, and I haven't really felt that way this whole time.
Well, and I think that does kind of relate to I said early on that I wanted to talk about something specific in our like theory corner that is sort of connected to this. So,
okay.
But before we do that, we should briefly talk about The Next Dawn because it was up immediately. Did you watch it?
Yes.
Okay. So R.A.P. Van, adult Van, Lauren Ambrose.
But never forgotten.
Never forgotten. Never for a moment. Okay. So we'll do The Next Dawn and then we'll talk about theories. So season finale, full circle.
I know. I don't know how to explain this. I know next week is the last episode. It didn't really occur to me that also means it's the season finale. Do you know what I mean?
No, not at all.
Like I knew next week is the last episode, but then it's over.
Yes. That's the thing. That's how this works. Do
you know what I'm saying?
No. It's logical that it's the end of the season. But so the synopsis is things turn frigid as bloody new alliances get built and spilled. It's our time right now down here in the new Queen's Court. Eat up, drink deep, and descend.
It's very good.
Yeah.
It's our time.
It's our time.
I'm taking them back. I'm taking them all back.
So I kind of wrote down just the different scenes. We don't need to kind of go through it and be like obsessive about all of it, but there are a couple things I noted. So we start with people eating meat again. Someone is in a horrifying mask that I don't remember seeing before.
Yeah, maybe I did, and I blocked it out, but
that one's rough.
I don't remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we see everyone standing around Shauna. I noted that the color is back to gray. It's back to that winter white gray tone that they've had. I also thought she looked like she was in Star Wars for a minute. I don't know, there's something about the way her hair is done and her rags and cloaks and stuff. It's very, I don't know. But she says we have to show the wilderness our respect. And then Lottie says,
such a bullshit line.
I know. Shauna. She doesn't believe that shit.
No.
But Lottie says we have to have another hunt. Of course we do.
Right. Right, because we still don't know who Pit Girl is.
Yeah. In present day, Ty is holding a knife, and adult Shauna is crying.
We've seen her cry a couple of times, and it's never been totally clear. I think the goat, Bruce, I think that's a real moment.
Oh, yeah, Bruce. Adult Ty is at a restaurant saying she's going to end up being the last one standing. We see cards shuffling, and then we get the line from Van, "You're asking me to pick who dies." Ugh. We see the girls running through the woods. We flash to Lottie in the hallway as an adult with all those candles. And she says, "They brought you to me." Who did they bring to her?
Brought to her.
Did they bring Callie to her?
Who's the they?
I mean,
in that case?
Yeah. I mean, I read it as it, but she does say they. Interesting. We see someone grabbing an axe, Shauna howling. That scene that we keep seeing over and over again of someone holding a stick or a stake against a tree. A quick flash of adult Ty crying, stabbing, or smashing something. A hand holding the tape, and then notably, some Callie, Shauna, Jeff stuff. I feel like this shit's going down in the adult timeline.
I think in both timelines.
Yeah, really. But like the Callie, Jeff, Shauna thing
stuff,
is going to be, I think is going to be big next episode. But so Shauna's looking at an empty closet that looks like it's in Callie's room. Then I had to pause this so many fucking times because we see Callie crying and then Jeff crying right after the closet.
So is her closet empty because they've moved out of the house?
That's what I am thinking.
And that's why they're crying?
Yeah. I mean, like, so when each of them is crying, it looks like they're sitting at a table, like a kitchen table or something. And it's not clear that they're together, but it's like one right after the other. And it appears that they're sitting across the table from each other. But yeah, I mean, that looks like Callie's room because there's like that pink behind her and just empty hangers in the closet.
I mean, good for them if they do that while she's gone.
Yeah. We see a quick flash of Teen Van and Ty hugging in the woods, more people eating meat. And then We see Lottie in front of the fire with her arms out, and a quick flash to a very weird, stretched out looking antler queen in front of the fire in that same pose. That antler queen in that last scene or that last clip barely looks human. Like it looks like a demon.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen plenty of antler queens in visions and hallucinations attached with various of the girls at different times, like Nat as an adult. And so that doesn't.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, it really, to me in that moment, those two scenes back to back, the way the light is, it looks like Lottie is looking at that antler queen because it's the fire. The light of the fire is on Lottie's face, and then the antler queen is backlit by that same fire.
Right, and so that could be a lot of things. I go back and forth with how much I care what's in that costume.
I mean, I'm interested, but it's not like a mystery I'm dying to solve. It's just I want to see how they end up deciding what it is, because in that vision in the preview, it looks like a vision. It doesn't look like a person in a costume.
Right. And it could be a vision, and then we see whoever it is. But it's funny, we're at a point where there are quite a few of them I could see being.
Yeah, I mean, I don't...
Antler Queen in this last...
Yeah, and I don't think that it's like, you know, I feel like it's important to remember that the creators have never used the phrase antler queen.
Exactly.
That it's, to them, in the script, it was referred to as a shaman-like character. So we'll see. But, you know, the things that stuck out to me about the trailer were the Callie and Jeff stuff and adult Shauna clearly going after someone. I mean, excuse me, not adult Shauna, adult Ty clearly going after someone.
I wonder if, because they've told us we're going to find out what happened to Lottie. And I was trying to figure out how they could show us that if no one else was there. Right? But Lottie didn't get a plane scene.
No, she didn't.
And is she our only adult who hasn't... Our only dead adults now are... not counting Travis.
Well, but we should count Travis, though.
Count Travis, you're right.
Yeah.
But Travis, Lottie, Van, and Todd... Or, I almost said God forbid, but they're all going to die eventually, I'm sure. Van and Nat. And I wonder if there's any reason that Travis and Lottie didn't get plane scenes yet, and if she might get one next week or not.
No, it's something that I've wondered about too. So yeah, I am interested to see. I do, for some reason, the way that Lottie said they brought you to me made me really feel like Callie is there at some point when Lottie is, like, either right before she dies or when she dies.
I think of all of the characters who could be there, she's the most interesting.
Yeah, and we definitely, like, from the beginning of the season, I feel like, so as soon as we saw Callie and Lottie spending time together, and then Lottie put the necklace on her, and then, like, all the stuff that's been going on with Callie, as soon as we found out Lottie died, like, she was definitely one of the first people that we were like, well, you know, I never pictured it as Callie turns into a cold-blooded killer and just murders Lottie, like, for the fuck of it. I read it more as, like, something happens that is unintended, but Callie is there.
Yeah, I think, again, that's also the most interesting version of it for me.
Yeah.
She goes that even if it's not her fault, she feels like she has some involvement and then has to decide what direction to turn with that in mind.
Right. Yeah.
Theory time?
Theory time. I don't have too many, but I am interested in a couple of things, and I think they're all a little bit connected. So we already talked about the whole references to Dateline and all of that, which may play into this theory that I was reading on Reddit this morning, as may the fact that a couple of times it seems like characters have broken the fourth wall recently. Have you seen that clip of Hilary Swank looking directly at the camera while she's talking? Okay. That can't be an act. It's quick, but it's like anytime that happens, if it's not supposed to, the director will have them do it again or cut it out. Like, it just feels like it's happened more than once.
Oh, I didn't realize that it's happened more than once. That's the only one that I've
Yeah, there was another time that somebody did that that was cited, but of course now I can't remember what it was. But it's definitely happened more than once, and the one with Hilary Swank was really notable. So I want to give credit where credit is due, because even if this is only partly true, it's such an interesting way to look at the whole thing, and it's so connected to how we have been talking about it through like a media history / theory lens.
Cool.
So this is by Indication Creative 73. And it's quite long, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of give the bullet points. And so they say, this is heavy meta-analysis from a media nerd lens. If I'm right, I'm ruining a surprise built on several years of carefully crafted work by some very talented writers. That said, I could be wildly off base and pulling things out of thin air. So, all that said, here's the theory. Yellowjackets is a piece of metafictional horror where the true antagonist is not a demonic force or a supernatural manifestation, but the audience's desire to consume the spectacle of female pain. It is the structural demands of the horror genre, serving up the characters' suffering and trauma for our enjoyment. The show is holding up a mirror to us in our voyeuristic, cannibalistic desire to consume these women's pain, craziness, violence, anger, sadness, and loss. And each episode is starting to telegraph that more and more clearly. And some of the evidence that they cite is the Melissa looking into the camera. She's acknowledging that we're not interested in normalcy because she's talking about her normal, boring life. The VHS glitch, Lottie axing Edwin because he's sort of an interruption of the viewing, possibly ending the trauma. He's like a rational outsider.
And all of those shots that we talk about that seem a little like
someone's watching.
Someone's watching from the woods.
No shit. Yep. Shauna saying no one cared about you before me to Mel isn't about the rest of the girls. It's about us. And then there's a bunch more, but they mention Van watching her own death on the screen, right? It's a detachment for us. And then the conversation between young Van and adult Van basically voicing the expected audience reaction. It's hard to watch, in quotes. We, as the audience, are looking away from the actual emotional repercussions.
Right.
And so I'm almost there. But at the end, they say, like, within this framing, a whole bunch of things in the show make sense. The deaths are abrupt and unsatisfying because they're playing out according to the rules of a realistic psychological horror genre. Real life is messy and abrupt and meaningless. And the characters on these shows die not for greater thematic reasons or according to mystical narratives, but because the senseless pain of their loss drives the horror for the other characters. And then Cody coming in as a hyper-masculine survival fiction trope from Deliverance or The Edge, setting the audience up for misogynistic expectations that a strong man is going to restore order, but he's in the wrong genre and he quickly gets discarded. His emptiness is the point. It's a myth of masculine wilderness authority that is powerless and irrelevant to these girls. And then the abrupt end of Kevin Tan and the police investigation storyline. In a different show, he would have been a stabilizer / moral compass, but he's not part of the trauma economy, so he's quickly discarded. There's a lot more, but I just thought this was like super fascinating in order to structure some of the stuff that has been little things that have been left hanging for us that we haven't been able to like fit into a box really. So reaction.
This.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking two different things right now.
Okay.
I love this. I'm going to say I'm not sure which order to say this in.
Okay.
If that is what is actively happening and is the intention of the show creators, I wonder how they get to that explicit reveal at the end without it feeling to everybody like they're being cheated, that it isn't, that it's that a quote unquote lost ending where it's not they're dead the whole time, but that it doesn't matter because it's not real.
Right.
Set all of that aside. As an English teacher and literary theorist and all of that, if a student gave me a paper that said, here is a show that has some issues that it is hard to reconcile with. However, if you read it through this lens, these choices become more clear. That is an A+ paper. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so both of those things, it really does put the show into a kind of focus, and it does iron out some of those wrinkles in a way that I feel really satisfied by.
Same.
And they have been planting seeds. Those VHS, the
glitches.
the glitches are so specific.
And all the references to Dateline to me play into this as well. And like the last paragraph of this like literal essay basically says the final horror may be that there is no cosmic order, no it, just our human refusal to accept randomness and face difficult truths and the lengths we will go to in order to impose structure, meaning, and digestibility onto human suffering.
Well, I mean, that's been in there forever.
Yes, that's always been in there, but I feel like it's important to kind of restate.
I guess my feeling is for people like you and I who are enjoying the way they're working through these things and the way these tensions show up, I don't know what giving us an explicit reveal that that's what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm so curious. I don't know how you do that, but it does help the things like that you and I have said all along, which is like we can call these women unreliable narrators because we're not actually sitting in this, and it does feel like someone is telling the story.
Yes, yeah, which is something that you've talked about for a while now.
And it works in that as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they'd have to be so careful.
I know. Well, and another little bit of evidence for that idea is, and this is from someone named Puzzle-Headed Tomato, which I love that name.
Probably from Jersey.
Yeah, that's a Jersey tomato. Said, I'm beginning to wonder if a portion of the next season will be in a documentary style with surviving Yellowjackets being interviewed and retelling the story, whatever version of the story that is. That felt possible in the final plane scene with Van, that her story isn't over yet. And then the person named Barbecue Dorito commented after that, a documentary was in the original pitch.
I don't know if we've cut conversations about this before because I just think I'm not trying to claim credit for something. I just think this is a conversation you and I have had and offered as a possibility. We definitely haven't given it that lovely of an analysis and that thoughtful of an exploration of that venue, but I do think there's a way to do it. I would be where I can imagine being very satisfied if we find out that what we're watching is some sort of retelling. Yeah.
And it also kind of ties in with the extreme fan obsession and reaction to this show. And like, not that we're not guilty of it. Obviously we have a podcast, but everyone being so wrapped up in theories and like screenshotting and all of that, like it kind of goes along with this idea of like us being fascinated by like watching women's pain
and the like, not to put like the consumption parallel of like they're physically consuming and we're consuming all. I love it. I think that's so cool. Yeah, I think even if that's not what the show is, watching it through that lens is really, really smart and really thoughtful. And
this person continued to add, oh, it's so good. I mean, like I'll share this post with you. They said a little bit later in that same thread, my latest theory about Melissa, good horror is almost always trauma catharsis. This show reverses that concept by making it that each character's trauma response is structured around a horror thriller genre. Ty is split personality, Van is kid adventure, Lottie is occult folk fairy tale, Misty is crime comedy / serial killer antihero, and Shauna is pathetic domestic horror. And she said, anyways, I think Melissa is found footage horror, which is why she keeps breaking the fourth wall. Her trauma is aware it's being observed by an audience, so she's the one piercing the bubble.
Interesting.
I just love this shit. Like, whether it's like fits what's happening or not. And we know that from our interview with Ashley Lyle coming out this week, we know that Ashley Lyle is a supreme horror nerd.
Totally.
She has a horror movie club. She was renting like really disturbing shit at age 11. She's always been into this stuff. This is not just a side interest that happens to kind of dovetail with other things. So, yeah.
I think that's really cool. And it makes me want to go back and watch the show from episode 1 with this.
I know, right?
With this lens on.
Good Lord. Really cool. Yeah.
Good find, Jodie.
Oh, I mean, great post. Whatever your real name is. Indication Creative 73. Yeah. Yeah. So good. Okay.
That's very cool.
So I just wanted to bring that up because we're about to hit the finale and there's been such split reactions to this season, and people seem to be watching this show in a couple of different ways. And we've brought that up before. And I think that like thinking about this as a way to watch the show is super interesting to me.
I love it. I love it.
Me too.
Very cool.
Oh my God. One more. Only one more.
One more. Well, if folks want to reach out to us between now and that last episode.
Or between now and our interview with Ashley Lyle, creator of Yellowjackets.
Co-creator of Yellowjackets.
Yeah.
Where can they do that?
They can find us at WatchersPodNJ on Instagram, and they can email us at watcherspodnj@gmail.com. And they can find me on Instagram at Jodie_Mim, JODIE_MIM.
And I'm at AQ Andrea Q.
And just a quick heads up on the Ashley interview. We did record this before episode 9 came out. So it was between 8 and 9. So that is why, you know, there's no questions about like, why the fuck did you kill off Lauren Ambrose? Not that I would have said that to Ashley Lyle, but I might have wanted to.
I wonder how she felt knowing that the next thing we were going to see was the death of
I know.
Such a fantastic character.
God.
Yeah, we will see you. Well, you'll see us. You'll hear us on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then we will see you at a regularly scheduled Monday for the hunt.
For the hunt. I almost said we'll see you in the closet because that was the first scene from the trailer that popped into my brain.
Okay, well, you'll see me at the hunt. You'll see Jodie in the closet.
Yeah. Perfect. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.